To proceed to the next one, to go back.
We won by 3.
Okay.
8-5.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our June board meeting. As the year comes to a close, I'd like to thank the community for supporting us when we needed it the most. Thank you for helping us to navigate these unprecedented times with feedback for us to consider. We also want to thank you for sharing constructive ideas for work that we can do in the future to improve our school district. We really appreciate that. As always, I want to thank our staff and our administration for having unbelievable stamina and drive this year of all years. And finally, I want to thank our students for their resilience. I always end the year grateful for what we've learned and hopeful for tomorrow, and this year is no difference. So thank you so much for attending tonight. And following the meeting, we wish you all a wonderful summer. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, to start off this meeting, we have a brand new board member sitting with us, Shani Park. So Shani, please stand, and I'm going to administer the oath of office. So actually, yep. I, Shani Park, do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the position of Board Trustee, according to the best of my ability. That's it. Congratulations, Shani. Okay, this is the last meeting for two of our board trustees, Mr. DiFilippo and Mr. Feldman. Chris, the board wanted to present you with a plaque in honor of your board service. 9 years is an incredibly long time to give to your community, and the board wishes you well in all of your future endeavors. Congratulations on 9 years. Chris, do you want to say a few words?
Okay, thank you all. I'd like to say a few words. Okay. Thank the board for this award. It's very nice. I appreciate that. I'd also like to thank the council PTA. They also had given me an award, Advocate in Action Award. I thought that was very nice. I appreciate that. I just wanted to say it's been officially about 9 years since serving as one of your Syosset School trustees. Has been an experience truly of a lifetime. It's been having the opportunity in serving our community, the school district, and working on a board of 8 other trustees. I encourage everyone to contribute in any way you can in serving others. In my experience, to serve others allows me to live a more enlightened life and allows to add value to others. In serving on the school board, I made decisions and advocated for our community. Sometimes I would stand alone and sometimes not, and that's okay. I was never here to win any popularity contest. I worked to raise the level of awareness with others so they could be empowered to make their own decisions. It's easy to follow, it's challenging to lead, and even tougher to empower others. While being on the board, I felt the need to represent all, especially those whose voice is seldom heard. We are entrusted here to make the best with what we have, to understand that there needs to be control when spending taxpayers' money. The school district is not the federal government. We can't print money. Our lives have changed forever with this pandemic. Both good and bad, it will be an experience you will never forget. Students, keep notes on this. and one day in the future you will share with your own family and children someday. As you may experience that history books, however, they may not quite get it right on what you actually experienced. When you have families of your own, try not to mention this happened so many years ago. They will think you're ancient. To our seniors who will be graduating, I have a few words. I just ask you to try these words on like fitting for your prom dress or suit. Whatever you can do or dream, you can. Begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. As you know, that was by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Goethe has been written as having an IQ of 225, apparently higher than Newton with an IQ of 220. So what does that mean? It means whatever it means to you. Anyway, whereas that's a great quote, I like to keep it short, and that is, just do it. During one of our board meetings, I heard from seniors speak out on what was important to them. Well, coming back to school for all the seniors, this is an example of advocating. When something needs to be done, don't wait for the next guy to do it. You be that person. Keep doing that. Don't stop at what is comfortable and fits for you. Continue to advocate for others who cannot. That's a way to make your mark, to show how you can make a difference. I wish all the seniors in all schools and all districts the very best. And just if you remember one quote, I wish to thank this community for allowing me to serve on this board, and it's been an honor and experience I will never forget. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any board members who'd like to speak? Carol Chang.
Okay, Chris, thank you so much for your 9 years of service to the community and our students. Best of luck. Thank you.
Tom Rotolo.
Chris, thank you so much for all of your dedication and hard work and volunteering of your time away from your family. I've been on the board with you now 2 years, and I see the passion. You dig into issues. You try to figure out what it is, and I appreciate that. You've been a good leader, and I wish you the best of luck going forward, and thank you so much for all of your volunteering to the community.
Thank you, Tom.
Just to echo Tom and everyone else, thank you, Chris. I can't see you. Thank you for the 9 years that you've given this community. Your heart was always in the right place. And thank you for your passion and compassion, and all the best in whatever you pursue next. Thank you.
Chris, thanks so much for putting 9 full years in as a school board trustee. Only someone else who has served on this board can fully comprehend all the time and dedication it takes, and you did that, and I wish you the best of luck.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. 9 years is a long time, and we wanted to wish you the best of luck in everything you do in the future.
Chris, thank you, and I'm very lucky to at least spend 1 month with you. And thank you so much for your coaching and talking to me. You know, when I was running, you were always offering your time and your advice. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to echo the sentiment of everyone else. Thanks, Chris. Again, 9 years is a long time, so 3 longer than me, so that's pretty good. and wish you the best in the future, and good health and success to you.
Okay, Mr. Feldman, the board wished to honor you with a plaque as well for your 6 years of service, and I'll pass that along. I'm going to miss your telling it like it is, Andy. You have a way of distilling very complicated issues into a manner that anybody could understand. You understood the value of bringing humor into a room, and my goodness, that's so important when we do the work that we do, and we have serious issues to discuss. I value your perspective always, and I wish you a lot of luck with your future. Does anyone else on the board want to say anything? Susan?
So when I joined the board a year ago, you were one of the first people to reach out to me. You were always incredibly kind, and you always offered so much support. You have been an incredible asset to the school board and district. I've always been so impressed by your financial insight and your insight in general. It's always spot on. You've been such a great advocate for the kids and for all the people in the district. You're truly the definition of what a board member should be, and I wish you all the best in all of your future endeavors. I'm so glad that I got to serve with you, if only for 1 year. Thank you for all that you've done. You're going to be greatly missed. I can't see you, but there you are.
I want to echo what Susan said. Every time we had a meeting or we met, you always had a very positive attitude, great team player, very matter of fact, but always was able to listen to everybody's perspective and just be a great team member. I'm definitely going to miss you. I'm definitely going to miss how courteous you are, and you're always very helpful, always engaging. But I'll definitely see you at the gym, though, Andy, so you need to come back. Thank you.
Rob?
Andy, it's been really great having you on the board these past 6 years. I didn't know you beforehand, but we've become really good friends, and I hope we can continue to have some business clients in common. And I wish you the best of luck, and we're going to miss you.
I'm definitely going to miss you. Thank you for the 6 years. I vividly remember when you just came on the board. I was sitting in the audience, and I don't believe you missed too many PTA meetings, especially SEPTA. So, they're definitely going to miss you, and you were just always there, an amazing team player. Great attitude, I agree, and we'll miss you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Andy, I'm incredibly proud that you never lost sight of what you are and what you stood for. You lead this position with as much integrity as when you arrived 6 years ago, and we want you to know that you have made a tremendous impact on the children in the district. Your professionalism and intellect will be greatly missed, and best of luck. And have fun on your Peloton.
Andy, thank you for your 6 years of devotion to the school district. I certainly know what that's all about. Whereas perhaps we may not have agreed on everything, you did offer a different perspective for me to take a look at, and I appreciate that. And I wish you the very best in your future endeavors, and visit the board as I will from time to time. It is a public meeting, so thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, great. Sorry? Oh, yes, Andy, thank you. Andy, do you have some words?
Wow, so, if I had known you felt that way about me, I may have run again, but it's too late. Anyway, thank you so much for the kind words. It means a lot to me. It's been an honor to serve this great community for the last 6 years. I can't believe how fast it's gone. I've been very fortunate to be involved in many accomplishments and initiatives, such as the Facilities Improvement Project to improve and renovate the infrastructure and athletic facilities, curriculum enhancements, numerous safety improvements pre-pandemic and during, additions in the number of psychologists and social workers to further address students' mental well-being, programs and events to educate students about different cultures, ethnicities, and religions, and also making Lunar New Year, Diwali, Eid al-Adha, and Eid al-Fitr school holidays, just to name a few. I'd like to congratulate the 3 newly elected board trustees. You will soon learn that the public meetings are just a part of your duties. You'll be working closely with the 8 other trustees at numerous executive sessions, special meetings, retreats, and emergency meetings, and teamwork is of the utmost importance. At my last Know Your Candidate event, back in the old days when they were in person, we were asked what's the most important attribute of a school board trustee, and I thought it was a great question. My answer was being able to work as a team with 8 others. That does not mean going along with everyone else. Not at all. Doesn't mean that at all. But you voice your opinion. You do what you feel is right. If it doesn't go your way, respect the democratic process by which the decision was reached and don't undermine the board. It's now a board decision as a whole. I've had the pleasure of meeting and working with so many outstanding individuals from the board, the administration, the staff, the PTA, and SEPTA. There's just so many people. I'll miss a lot of names, so I'm just not going to do that. I'd like to thank Dr. Rogers, who has taught me more than he'll ever know. Central administration, Fran Benjamin, and the office staff, and my fellow current and former trustees. Again, it's been an honor and a privilege to be able to give back to this great community. I wish all of you good health, success, and happiness with everything you do. Thank you.
Ms. Frankel afforded me the opportunity to say a couple of things. Mr. DiFilippo, you were here when I was hired. I appreciate the confidence and the trust that the board placed in me then. I wish you nothing but the best in your future endeavors. Health, long life. Mr. Feldman, thank you for the kind words. I do appreciate them. I've really enjoyed working with you over these last 6 years, and I know I'm going to miss our chats, but I suspect that we'll have opportunities to bounce into one another now and again, and I look forward to that. And I wish you also health, good luck, long life.
Okay. I just want to applaud both of you for an incredible career with us. Thank you so much for your service again. We've all benefited. Okay, now to the regularly scheduled program. The approval of the minutes for May 10th, 2021. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Cheng, seconded by Mr. Gershon. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Approval of the minutes of meeting May 18, 2021. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Falkov, seconded by Ms. Cheng. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Dr. Rufo, please give us the treasurer's report.
As indicated in the treasurer's report, the cash on hand for the month end April 30th, 2021 is $100,468,311.01. It shows that bank balances for all cash accounts were reconciled to the book balances and were collateralized in accordance with the district's banking agreements and investments policy.
Thank you, Dr. Rufo. May I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Mr. DiFilippo. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Dr. Rogers with the superintendent's report.
Thank you. So in this most unusual of years, at the beginning of the school year, I wasn't sure that there were going to be athletics at all, but indeed there were athletics, and halfway through the year, a plan was created to have 3 seasons in half a school year. It meant that the fall season would have to be squeezed in between the winter and spring seasons, but that unlike last year where our spring athletes didn't get an opportunity to compete, this year all of our athletes would have a chance, even if it was an abbreviated chance. But that abbreviated chance has not diminished our students' success, and here to report on some of the remarkable achievements that they made in these compressed seasons is our athletics director, Mr. Drew Cronin.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak for a few minutes about our year. We covered the winter earlier in the year, and we were confident that we'd get through that season successfully, and we did just that. Thanks to your guidance and the Board of Education for their support through all that. Between the testing, between the kids coming in, staying socially distanced, wearing their masks, kids were phenomenal. The coaches were incredible, and it wasn't through strictly hard work. It was through working smart and being safe and following the guidelines that got us to this point. As you know, our seasons were a little discombobulated this year. They went from winter to fall to spring, so who can imagine playing out in the snow where you have football, which sounds like a lot of fun, and soccer, which sounds like a lot of fun in the snow. But we were lucky enough to have weather that cooperated a little bit, and we were able to get those seasons in, and we're continuing on right now with the spring season. So I'll just segue into something that happened today. All good stuff. Mostly good stuff, but the girls lacrosse team beat Oceanside today. They'll go ahead and play Massapequa on Wednesday at Bethpage in the county final. That's at 4 o'clock. The boys lacrosse team will play Farmingdale tomorrow at 7:30 at Mitchell Field, and that also is for the county championship. Unfortunately, baseball, who had a fantastic season and fought the entire year, lost today to Plainview, but still in all, it was a fantastic season, hard fought. Track and field will continue on over the weekend, Thursday through Saturday in the sectional championships. Badminton unfortunately lost to Jericho, but once again had a great season, as did softball. So I'm excited for what lies ahead, and I'm going to get on with the presentation shortly. But if you remember, when the weight room went in, we said we were going to utilize it, and we said that preliminarily that this is going to be a big part of our athletic program. And if you were there in the fall, you saw the work that went in, and the kids in the weight room starting slowly and building to get back into shape to be able to participate in athletics. The weight room now is occupied daily from probably 6 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock at night, between PE classes, between coaches holding workouts for their teams and kids who just want to come in and work out. We have utilized that weight room countless hours, and it's really, really been a blessing. So I want to thank you for putting that forward, the community as well. I just think it's been one of the greatest opportunities for our athletes, and if you ever get a chance to see it, boys and girls working out side by side, socially distanced, of course, and with their mask on, but doing a fantastic job. So thank you once again for that. So I'm going to get on with the fall and the spring. Just some highlights. So anytime I like to do highlights, we just remember that there's a team here. These are some of the kids that stood out and were voted for some awards, and they're quite the accomplishment. But remember, from the last person that's on the bench to all the starters, it's a team effort, including and it's cliche, but it's the truth. Even if it's an individual sport, it takes everybody on the team to make the chemistry of the sport, and kids want to go to it, and that's our goal as coaches and teachers. So onward with the presentation. So we'll just touch on the fall athletics now for a few seconds, and we'll touch on some of the special awards for football. As you know, football played in the winter and had a good season, but had some 3 real standouts. Luca Catolo was all Long Island, and the Pat Pizzarelli Award for Best Receiver in Nassau County, which is an outstanding accomplishment. Mr. Thomas Henry was all county, and Jason Singer was all Long Island. These awards don't just come You don't automatically get an award, and they're voted on by your peers and your coaches, so they're very difficult to attain. These three young men, once again part of a team, stood out, and I know they're thankful to their teammates, but that was quite the accomplishment. Boys soccer, if you had a chance to come see the playoff game or if you saw it live streamed when they played Westbury, that was just an amazing game. And someone who stood out again for the soccer team, and there were more, was Cole Evans, who was voted the conference goalkeeper of the year, along with being an all-county athlete. If there's ever a sport that requires someone to really stand out at a certain position, it's goalie in soccer. And this young man accomplished that. You know, if you ever just see him play, it's an incredible event. Moving on to girls soccer, I don't know if I have enough paper to go through the awards that these kids earned. Varsity girls soccer 2021 Nassau County Section 8 champions, which is really quite an accomplishment and difficult. Remember, we are a large school, and large schools it's so difficult to even advance to the second round. Girls managed to do it this year and to win the Nassau County Championship. Unfortunately, we couldn't go any further because there were no Long Island or state championships, where I think we really would have been quite successful had we gone to those. Avani Brandt, All County, All Long Island, AA Conference Player of the Year, Newsday Player of the Year, Mike Clark Player of the Year Award. I believe she'll be voted All-American. If you have a few minutes, I'll just go through it. 2020-21 All-American, All-State First Team, All-County, Newsday All Long Island First Team Player of the Year, Newsday All Long Island Player of the Year, Nassau County Girls Soccer Association Player of the Year, Nassau County Conference AA Player of the Year, Nassau County Tournament MVP, and selected to play in the it's in France, so I can't pronounce it, but it was quite the accomplishment to be able to play in France for Avani. She and her teammates are just incredible. Riley Miller, in addition, All County, All Long Island second team. We're still waiting to see if she had made All State and if she will get to be an All American. Girls cross country, coached by Mr. Mike Spiteri. Again, 2021 Nassau County champions. Emily Berg, Samantha Goldberg, Nicole Conklin, and Yui Hoshino were all county runners. And I'm just going to spend 2 seconds on track, cross country, winter and spring. These kids train year round, as do most kids do, but the track kids are special in that they train regardless of the weather, regardless of the time, in the weight room, out of the weight room, riding the bikes, moving my stationary bikes outside, which gets me a little aggravated at times, but it's okay because they put them back nicely. And they're just continually working, and they're working hard, and they're working smart, and their coaches are so dedicated. I can't be more proud of these kids because they're always up on the bandstand with their plaques and their awards, just outstanding. The boys will be next, but the girls had a fantastic season once again. Our boys cross-country team is coached by Rich Caffiero. Jordan Altman, Harrison Fusey, Ben Gruber, and Carl Nye were all county recipients. An outstanding season for them as well. Boys badminton is really starting to make a splash. Thank you for adding that a couple of years ago to our repertoire. Coach Murtha treats it like his wrestling program, which sometimes can be a little exciting for the kids because they really work so hard and they've gotten so much better, and they're taking on Jericho, and I'm telling you, in a year or so we're going to end up beating Jericho. I'm not going to guarantee it, but we're going to compete with them. Arjun Chada, Eddie Dwan, Stanley Cow, Ashok Mutalia, Kevin Zhao, and Tristan Wong were all county badminton players, and that's just quite an accomplishment to have that many kids participate. There's doubles and singles involved in that. Boys volleyball, coached by Mike Aquero, Dylan Freed, all county, and James Tom, all county as well. Girls volleyball, another exciting season. If you had the opportunity to come over and see them play, just an outstanding team coached by Coach Christensen. Erica Borzone, all county, and Jennifer Kessner, all county, and a Newsday top 25 player. And once again, working year round to get better has proven that it happens. It happens when you put in hard work. So kudos to the girls volleyball program, onward and upward for them as well. And girls tennis coached by Mr. Shai Fisher. Now think about this, you're outside playing tennis in this weather, and they were able to get the season in. Not only that, but they got the 2021 Nassau County champions. So as you can see, Erica Brescher, Rachel Lynn, Isha Kushik, and Alex Ho, all state recipients. Alexa was all county. That's fantastic to get that, and these girls work so hard along with Coach Fisher, continuing the excellence that they have shown us in past years. Spring athletes. Now, spring athletics. Spring is still going on, so things are coming in dribs and drabs. I'll go through some of the things here, and I'll go quickly through the ones that just were printed out. I don't have pictures for the new ones because they're kind of just coming out in the end-of-season reports and being voted on, but I'd like to share the names with you if that's okay. So I'll start again with boys tennis now. We're in the spring season. Nassau County champions once again. And you can see all county doubles, county champions, Evan and Nikhil, and, Brian and Jeremy, doubles champions, all county doubles, Evan and Nikhil, and Anish Chadha, all county singles, and of course they won the county championship. Girls golf, was a pleasure to work with these girls, Olivia Chan and Abigail Wu, both all county. Boys golf, Peyton McPherson, Ryan Millivoy, Devin Pinperlo, and Troy Sanchez, all county golfers. And I'm out of clicks. So I'm going to proceed now to talk about briefly what just came across the wire for our all-county spring athletes. Badminton, girls badminton, Joyce Falk was all county. Varsity softball, Julia Rennie, all county. Sophia Carciola, all county. Madison Camp, all county. Julia Rennie was nominated for all state, and we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully she'll earn that award. Track and field for the girls, Isha Aladdin, Samaya Mayan, Samantha Smith, Lila Grubman, Emily Berg, Shania Jadga, and Evelyn Fusey were all county recipients. I know I'm taking up a little bit of time, but I think it's really important that we acknowledge all the kids, all the athletes, and the parents for all the support. And we're going to continue onward and upward with the rest of the season, which ends on the 19th. And thank you all for your support, and Dr. Rogers and Mr. Cardillo and all the administration. You guys are wonderful to work for and work with, and you're always out at the games. Couldn't think of a better place to work. So thank you very much, and the Board of Education, to those that are leaving. Thank you for always working and being so supportive. And those that are new to the board, welcome and best of luck. Thank you very much.
Our world language program is a source of pride for the school district. The state in recent years has created a new graduation credential that students can earn called a Seal of Biliteracy. And when the state made that available, we looked at our school district and thought that with the strength of our language program and so many languages represented in the district, that this should be something that we should really go after aggressively. So I know the board has been waiting to hear this presentation for a couple of months. Mr. Balsamo, Dr. Balsamo.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak about our world language program. Syosset has a long legacy of broad language offerings and high-quality education, and I'm happy to report that our program is stronger than ever. Tonight, I will talk about key curriculum updates, our approach to language learning, and student skills across levels. The Board of Education's goals align with our work in world language, as you can see in this slide. The future world we imagine will require communication skills in other languages and intercultural understanding. World language study acquaints students with the products, practices, and perspectives of the target cultures. We have expanded our language offerings over the years to reflect both our local and global communities. We strive to make world language study relevant. World language study begins in Syosset in kindergarten and first grade with an exploratory program focused on early language development. American Sign Language teaches students connections between words and gestures, fosters motor skill development, and teaches appreciation and understanding of people with disabilities. Our FLEX, or Foreign Language Experience model, is designed to introduce students to different languages and develop their intercultural understanding. Sixth graders choose among Chinese, French, Italian, or Spanish as the language they will study throughout middle and high school. We add American Sign Language, Japanese, Korean, Latin, and Russian as additional languages at the high school. Very few schools across the country match the range of language choices in Syosset. One of the distinct strengths of our program is that students have so many choices, with opportunities to study a language of personal interest. In doing so, students connect with their own heritage or that of another culture, pursue a passion, challenge themselves academically, or distinguish their high school transcript. Note that currently 100 students at the high school are enrolled in 2 languages, another statistic that sets our program apart. One of the best indicators of the health of world languages in Syosset is this data. The minimum graduation requirement for all students in New York State is 1 credit of a language other than English, which students earn at the end of 8th grade when they take the Checkpoint A exam. 95% of our students meet this goal, which is the whole group minus those students who have a learning disability that impedes language learning. After Checkpoint A, students have met the minimum requirement, but as the chart indicates, 93% of our learners go on to complete Checkpoint B, which is required for graduation with an advanced Regents diploma. Most noteworthy of all is the percentage of students who continue language study through senior year. I have not found anywhere near this level of persistence in any other school in our region. When I last reported this data to the board in 2019, the percentage of Syosset students opting to study a language was a point of pride. As you can see, in the intervening years, our program has grown to attract even more students. Why do they stay? Because of our teachers. They work tirelessly to create engaging units and lessons that students find meaningful, fun, and relevant. Our students see their skills grow year after year. They learn a lot, they have a good time, so they stick with it. The New York State Education Department updated learning standards for world language this year. The revisions reflect current teaching and learning practices, which bring New York in better alignment with national standards. This includes greater emphasis on the interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational modes of communication. NYSED also included a new theme called Global Awareness and Community Engagement. Happily, our curriculum and teaching began shifting toward these standards many years ago, so we are well prepared for New York's revision. In 2017, the district engaged in a process to add a non-European language to our 612 offerings. We conducted focus groups and surveyed parents, which resulted in the addition of Chinese in 2018. We have added courses as students move up to each grade level, and next year Chinese 2 and 2 honors will be offered at the high school. We also added elective Korean 1 and 2 courses at the high school and plan to offer a level 3 class in Korean in 21-22. We will offer ASL 4 next year for the first time. Our department's work is based on the national standards created and promoted by the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages, known by the acronym ACTFL. Close adherence to national standards gives our program coherence and continuity in the content we teach, our methodology, and how we assess learners to measure their growth. Current world language teaching is tightly focused on what students are able to do in the language they're learning. Can they use words, groups of words, sentences, strings of sentences, paragraphs? How can they communicate to make connections with other people in other communities from other cultures? Language learners build communication skills across 3 modes. The first is interpretive, which is a learner's ability to understand what they read, hear, or view in the target language. Communicating in the interpersonal mode consists of conversations, usually spoken, but sometimes written via text messages or conducted via video chat. Students engage in the presentational mode when they write, make speeches, send emails, or leave voice messages. Language learners start out in 6th grade as novices, using memorized words and phrases to communicate. In a relatively short amount of time, learners move up from novice to intermediate level. Intermediate learners create with language, using original sentences and strings of sentences to express themselves. Learners spend more time working through the intermediate level than the novice level, as indicated by the graphic. While the goal of our program is that learners reach the highest range of the intermediate level, it is important to note how much learners can do with even novice level skills. Imagine if you could speak the local language at the novice level as you travel around the world. You would be able to greet people, introduce yourself, do some shopping, order in a restaurant, read street signs, and engage in simple conversations with locals about their everyday lives. If you have ever had the experience of being a traveler in a country where you know even just a little bit of the local language, you can truly appreciate the joys novice level skills bring, let alone the engagement intermediate level skills offer. Assessments in world language show where students are on the proficiency continuum so that we can move them up to the next level. Next year, students in grades 8, 10, and 12 will take an external assessment called the Actful Assessment of Performance Toward Proficiency in Languages, or APPLE. This is a computerized, standards-based assessment that evaluates students in speaking, listening, reading, and writing. By analyzing the scores, we see how students build proficiency as they move through our program. Individualized score reports give learners suggestions for building to the next level. Multiple years of data will provide evidence of longitudinal growth for our department. Integrated performance assessments have replaced most unit tests in our department. An integrated performance assessment is a cluster of real-world tasks centered on a specific topic or situation. Let's take a look at an example that 7th graders recently completed in Chinese. At the conclusion of studying the school life unit, 7th graders in Chinese completed this integrated performance assessment. The topic was, what are schools like in China? How do they compare to your school? To find out, first you will read about a principal in China who starts the day at his school in a unique way. Then you will play the role of student ambassador by introducing an exchange student from China to your school. Afterwards, you will exchange emails with the visitor. Through this cluster of realistic and simulated tasks, students demonstrated what they learned during the school life unit. Let's shift from novice level 7th graders at the beginning of their language study to the other end of the spectrum, seniors who are graduating with the New York State Seal of Biliteracy. The Seal of Biliteracy is a graduation designation that indicates intermediate high proficiency in both English and another language. As you can see, the number of Syosset High School graduates earning the seal continues to rise. Students earn the seal in part by completing a project about a topic of their choosing. Each project includes interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational elements. In summary, thank you for this opportunity to share some of our program's many accomplishments. We look forward to what is ahead, including useful data about our students' language proficiency from APPLE and the update to our language standards across the state. We also are pursuing the aspirational goal of increasing enrollment of non-Asian heritage students in Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, which furthers our district's work toward greater diversity and inclusivity. Additionally, we hope to see ever more students graduating with the Seal of Biliteracy. Thank you for your attention and ongoing support for our work.
Dr. Balsamo, I just want to thank you so much for, I know we were planning on hearing from you a couple of months ago and we had to move things along, and that was really very helpful and considerate of you to move your program for today. It really was very helpful. I don't know how many people remember, but several years ago, the board requested that a study take place and an evaluation of the World Language Program to see whether there were opportunities for growth, and in the hope that we'd have an increased number of students who were fluent at the end of the day. And I think this program has really flourished, as you have said. So I'm thankful for that. I wanted to know whether the IPA assessments are more challenging than the previous assessments were, and whether you're seeing increased proficiency because of the IPA assessment.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the IPAs are much better aligned to what we want the outcomes to be for kids, in that they're aligned to communication. So whereas traditionally teachers might have given some element of a test that was based on memorization, frankly, like learning a certain set of grammar or a certain set of vocabulary, a more modern approach to language learning is the outcome of being able to communicate. So those interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational modes. So harder or easier is a little bit hard to say. I mean, for some kids, frankly, it's a little bit more natural for them to communicate in those three modes. For some kids who are really good studiers, who will memorize whatever you give them to memorize, they love a vocabulary test. There are some kids who, you give 1,000 words, they'll learn 1,000 words. But the idea is that that's not necessarily the way you use a language, right? No one's going to ask you to list 17 fruits, but people might ask you to have a conversation with a fruit seller to buy something in a market. You see the difference. It's more of a situational, real world approach rather than more of a memorized kind of approach, if that makes sense.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Balsamo before he exits? Yes.
Dr. Balsamo, thank you for that great presentation. We've literally been waiting months to hear it. Regarding the New York State Seal of Biliteracy, I think you mentioned that the students had to complete a project. Do they have to, is that something that only students who are in their fourth year of high school study are eligible for? And do they have to maintain a certain average to attain that?
Sure. So the New York State Seal of Biliteracy is based on a number, earning it is, you get a certain number of points for completing certain tasks. So some of the tasks are grades that kids get. For example, they have to have above a B+, and they get a point for that. They have to take, there's a whole menu of things they have to do, and they get points for doing different things. One of the ways that they earn their points is by completing the project. And the project is offered to students who are in the AP level and also at the SUPA, the college level. And the reason behind that is the intermediate high level of proficiency is actually a relatively high level of proficiency. I mean, we use the word intermediate, but intermediate speakers can handle almost any conversational situation. They can think on their feet. They create with language. They speak in strings of sentences and even approaching paragraphs. That's a pretty high level of language. So, it's remarkable how many of our kids achieve it. But again, they show that proficiency through the project. So not all of the students do the project. The students who are kind of, at that level of proficiency are the students who we have do the project and earn the seal.
Shani?
Dr. Balsamo, thank you so much for the presentation. Could you go back to the slides of how many percentage of students are taking languages in each year? And I saw that there was a sudden increase 2019 to 2021 in 11th grade from 78% to 90%. You mentioned that it's due to the teachers engaging the students to retain. Within those 2 years, it seems like it's a great jump, and I like seeing these statistics. Is it possible that as quickly as the jump has gone up, it could also go down?
Well, I think our students really see the value of learning the language. The world is getting smaller. Obviously, learning a foreign language, is going to be ever more important to our learners who are graduating high school. So I don't see that going down. Statistics can sometimes wobble a little bit, but I don't see the numbers going down. I think the biggest, like I said in my presentation, I think that kids, come in, I always say kids want three things out of a class. They want to learn something, right? They want to go out knowing something that they didn't know when they walked in. They want to have a good time, and they want to have good grades, right? So if we have all of those things in balance, if we have kids having a good time, learning something, and getting good grades, they stick with it. And that's what we do. That's what the teachers do, I should say. They do a phenomenal job of making sure all of those three things are happening. And that's why they persist. Yep.
Yeah, it's
Sure.
very encouraging.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Balsamo. Good job.
So one of the things that you see frequently in the education literature, in this year in particular, is worries about the impact that the pandemic has had on student learning. So that's obviously a question that we've been focused on as a school district. We've had in-person learners and we've had virtual learners this year. And so the questions are, how strong is the virtual program? Has being virtual caused some students to have some deficits? Are we experiencing deficits overall? And how well prepared are students coming out of this year for next year? So we use an assessment, thanks Louise, known as NWEA. It is not an achievement test. It is something that we use as a universal screen to identify students that may have some deficits so that we can catch them quickly and catch them up. And we have just started using this over the last couple of years. We did it as a pilot in a couple of schools. Now we do it district-wide. And we administered it 3 times this year. It can be done 3 times throughout the year, and we did it twice last year. So I'll go through some of that data. So as I mentioned, we use it as a screening tool to identify students for additional help. We see it as a low-stakes assessment, not a high-stakes assessment. So the idea is not to read too much into the data, but to just use it for comparative purposes. If we were going to try and get much more granular and precise with student achievement, we would want to use multiple measures to assess student learning differently. And in some ways, Dr. Balsamo kind of signaled the value of having multiple measures because they can be more authentic. This is a computer-based assessment, and it is an interesting kind of assessment in that it is a computer-based adaptive assessment. What that means is if a student takes, these are multiple choice questions, gets the first multiple choice question correct, the next multiple choice question will be more difficult. And as long as the student keeps getting right answers, the questions continue to get more difficult until they reach a point where the student should get about half of the questions right. And the converse is true. If the student is struggling with a question, they'll get an easier question until they start getting half the questions right. And that's how the student is assessed. And each student is given, in the end, a score called a RIT score, R-I-T. And that RIT score is a single continuous scale that can go all the way through elementary, middle, even into high school. So it's not just being compared against your own grade level, but it's along a long continuum. So students are, we can look at this data in a number of different ways. I was trying to think of ways that I could do this meaningfully for the board in just a handful of slides. So I picked 2 different ways of slicing the data. The first is to look at what group, and you can think of these as level 1 through 5, level 1 being the lowest, level 5 being the highest, and assess where students fall and into which groups. So the blue bar is the highest of possible groups. The green, the second highest. The light green is average, and then the yellow and orange are just below average and well below average. So obviously those are the students that we want to target this extra support to, but I think what's notable about this is that these averages are developed with national averages, and you see here in Syosset, so many of our students are well above these national averages, large proportions well above, and very small proportions that are at the lowest end. So this is an average of the last 5 administrations of this test that we've done over the last 2 years. This is that data now broken out differently so that each one of those 5 administrations is viewed individually and by grade level. So this data is also by cohort. What does that mean? If we look at the first grade column, the first 2 bars, the green bars, are last year's data for this year's first graders. In other words, those are their kindergarten scores, but it's the same children. So that's why there are no bars, no green bars for kindergarten, because they were in preschool last year. They weren't here to take the test. So we look at each of these cohorts over time to see if they've grown. And the good news is all of the cohorts in all of the grades have grown. And this is broken out so that we can see math separate from reading and virtual students separate from in-person students. And what we see is the scores are comparable between virtual students and in-person students, and we see that the growth is comparable between virtual students and in-person students. And we see that both in reading and in math, we have high scores on the RIT scale, consistent with the scores that I showed on the previous slide. So this is our very high-level analysis. We've done some deeper digging into this data to identify areas that we want to explore further, but answering the question of, has this been a good year for students? Has this been an equally good year for virtual students and in-person students? The answer to both those questions is yes, it has been a productive year. Students have made a lot of academic progress this year despite the challenges, and we're not seeing a significant difference between our virtual students and our in-person students, which speaks well to both programs and how hard the teachers in both of those modes have worked. So there are, of course, back to the previous slide, individual students who need some additional attention. We're building more time and catch-up opportunities into the summer program this year. We're hoping students will be able to take advantage of that. And we also have plans for the fall to help those students catch up those individuals that may have struggled this year. I'm just going to talk about pre-K, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Rufo to go through the Foundation Aid update. So I mentioned this to the board last month. The state, in its grant of aid to school districts, included something that had never been included before. That was a universal pre-K allocation of $642,000. The state has 2 ways that you can use that money. One is to do a full year program, or to get half the money and do a half year program. Of course, getting the notification that they intended to give us a grant that we hadn't applied for on April 1st for a program that might begin in the fall was very quick. And the way the program is structured, it would be $5,400 per student for a full day program for 4-year-olds, and that money works out to about 119 full day slots. The school district does not have the space to accommodate a program like this. So the only way that we would be able to run a program is if we partnered with an eligible agency. And in fact, the state contemplates school districts partnering with eligible agencies. So this could be an organization that is already licensed as a pre-K or as a child care that would apply to serve our students under this grant program. What does that process look like? The school district would have to do an RFP, a request for proposals. We have been in the process of writing an RFP so that we can put that RFP out. What I want to caution the board is I don't know that we will get any viable responses to that RFP given the amount of funding that has been allocated by the state. But we won't know unless we ask. So we've been developing an RFP. We will post it. There have been some eligible agencies that have inquired of us whether we would be interested in partnering. So we'll put that RFP out. We will see what kind of responses we get to that RFP, and then we'll come back and talk to the board about what we've learned and what we see from the programs that have responded. And then if you have questions on this, or I can ask Dr. Rufo to talk about Foundation Aid.
Okay. So I'd like to ask a question about the universal kindergarten update on specifically if we would be using an outside service, would we have hiring authority? Would we have a say on the caliber of the staff that is going to be teaching the kids that are entering our schools?
No, the staff would be employed by the agency that we contract with. But what we can do is we can write into the specifications for the grant parameters for what we would like to see in the program. And so some of those parameters in the program may drive the type of staffing that is necessary for the program. And universal, all pre-K in New York State, including that which is paid for by the Universal Pre-K Grant Program, there are certification requirements for the teachers that are done at the state level. So they would have to be state certified teachers to begin with. And then what we've been doing is working with Dr. Lamelza's office and his staff because they work with the CPSE, that's the Committee on Preschool Special Education. That group has been working on developing the standards for the RFP that we're going to put out.
And then how would liability be assessed if there were to be an incident in connection with a universal pre-K, but we don't have our staffing there?
So they would be operating under a grant for us, and this would work, I think, in some ways similar to what happens with other kinds of private programs that we have for special education students, for example, where they are our students, but we're contracting with a special organization, BOCES, or one of the other special education providers to serve our student. So they have their own insurance, they have their own liability, they have their own staff. We contract with them on a tuition type basis. This would look a little different because we would be giving someone the entirety of the grant to operate a program on our behalf, but it would be their program at their facility operated for the benefit of our kids.
Rob?
Dr. Rogers, so what is the exact definition of an eligible agency, and does the eligible agency have to be located within the confines of the Syosset Central School District?
I don't believe that there's a geographic requirement, and Dr. Rufo has been doing the specific research on how to be an eligible agency, so I'm going to...
Yes, the list of eligible providers is on the Office of Early Learning website. And while you can go outside of the district, I guess there's a regulation that would require it to be convenient. So while you may go outside the district, right now, I think there are 7 providers on the list on the OEL website. And so those would be the first group that we would send the RFP to.
Now, will it be one location, or will it be several locations that the parents can choose from? And also, will it be fully subsidized, or is it something that parents will pay some portion and the school district will pay some portion? And also, will the bus service also be provided for this?
Do you want me to? I think that it might have been your second question. I can't recall the first one. The second one was, can parents be charged a differential if there is one, and no, they cannot. We're at this point, there is no, because we're still in the exploratory stage, thought of transportation. It is not a requirement to provide transportation. And I think there was one other question.
Yeah, the first question, whether it's going to be just one facility or we will have choice, parents will have choices between facilities.
I don't believe that the RFP requires one choice. However, it's in the research that we've done so far, it depends on the capacity of the facility to accommodate. If we were to move forward with 119 students, there may be space constraints and other factors involved.
There are some large school districts that do contract with more than one provider. I think that the answer to that question will come from what we see with the RFPs. We may get responses that say we can only accommodate 40 children as they respond to the RFP. We may get multiples like that. We really won't know until we see the responses.
Have you given any thought to how you would select which kids could take part in it? Would it be a lottery? Would it be need-based? How would it be selected?
If we were to move forward and demand exceeded available spaces, you would have to do a random lottery.
So if there aren't any suitable bids, what happens to the funds?
If it isn't possible to contract with someone, then we won't draw down the funds. The funds will recur again next year, but we won't be able to carry over this year's funds into next year. So even though the grant appears small to us, we figured we should check the marketplace and see if there's any possibility out there to get this done, rather than just not try and lose the money.
Dr. Rogers, in terms of the curriculum for the universal pre-K, is it the SCIASS standard, or it's set by whoever the winning agency is?
That's a good question. That's part of what we're writing into the RFP is curriculum standards that we would like to see, and then the respondents will have to tell us how they plan to meet those standards. Some of that will be driven by the certification of the teachers, and some will be driven by the program type that we specify.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We also have a report from Dr. Rufo on foundation aid. The state made a large increase in the amount of foundation aid that was given to school districts, and school districts are required to do a report on how that foundation aid will be used, so I just wanted to report to the board on that.
Okay, you'll recall from our budget presentation, we received an additional $2 million in foundation aid. We also discussed how this increase came about. Essentially, the state has a plan to move forward to full funding of the formula over the next 3 years. And while that's good news for SCIASS, certainly next year with an increase of $2 million and potentially increases in the subsequent years, we need to remain cautious about the sustainability of those increases over time. So districts that do receive a foundation aid increase in excess of 10% in any of the 3 years are required to present their plans for the use of the foundation aid on their website. So while during the budget meetings we talked about the different allocations, we're going to review it again just briefly tonight. So in working with Dr. Curry and Dr. Lamelza, the district's plan is essentially focused on 3 areas, and the overarching goal is to address student performance and need. The first area of our plan is providing support for students who are not meeting or are at risk of not meeting state learning standards in core academic subjects. So through the use of assessment tools, we will be collecting additional data and are collecting additional data and measures to identify target areas for remedial instruction. We're also planning research-based professional development for our instructional staff and for student tutor services, focused specifically on addressing closing these instructional deficits. Our current plan also includes allocations for content area supplies and materials to specifically address gaps and in the core areas of literacy, mathematics, social studies, and science. We'll continue to use instructional technology tools to support struggling students with devices and tools for use in school and at home, as well as content area subscriptions for remediation, support, and reinforcement of state standard knowledge. The second area of our plan is to direct some of the additional foundation aid to address the social and emotional health of our students. And as discussed during the budget presentations, we've included an allocation for an additional social worker position to focus on students in the elementary schools. We plan for increased training for registered behavioral technicians. We're working with the New York State approved mental health clinic to expedite psychiatric evaluations for students in need, as well as counseling services. And we're working toward a mental health data management system for early screening, intervention tracking, and progress monitoring. The third area of our plan is to enhance resources to our ELL and special education students. The additional foundation aid enabled us to include an allocation for the integrated co-teacher at the high school, and that expands our existing ICT model into the 9th grade. We anticipate additional allocations for ELL staff, learning loss, and reading and math intervention programs. And we're planning for expanded consultation support for the MTSS model. Additional progress monitoring measures to identify gaps and learning loss are also planned. Now, some details of the plan are still in development as we continue to assess and evaluate the needs of our students. The plan will be posted on the website, also with information on where to direct questions and concerns about the plan.
Thank you, Dr. Rufo. That concludes my report.
Are there any questions for Dr. Rufo on her foundation aid update? Okay, great. We're going to take A2 out of order before we get to audience to the public, because A2 is the approval of the appointment of a middle school assistant principal, probationary. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Ms. Falco. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? We'd like to congratulate Joetta Waters on this position at HBT. Congratulations. Please stand up if you're here. We're so excited about the energy and the experience that you're going to bring to HBT, and we wish you a long and successful career with us and our Syosset family. So thank you so much for being here. Okay, we will begin audience to the public now. If you haven't been here before, I'd just like to go through a few of our rules so that you understand the process. When you get up to the podium, you will announce your name, please, and your address, because only Syosset residents can speak at the podium. You'll see a register at the podium, and you can fill out your name and address there too. That way we can get back to you if we're unable to answer any questions that you might have. You'll have an initial 4 minutes to make any comments or ask questions of the board. If you go over, you might hear a beep. That's just a reminder about the time. And we'll ask you to stay seated, but if you haven't finished, at the end of the first round of audience to the public, we'll invite you back for another 4 minutes in order to complete your questions or your comments. After the first round is complete, at that time, we'll do our very best to answer the questions that you have. And again, if we're unable to do so and we need to look and research some information for you, we'll get back to you. And then after the second round, we will do the same. We'll do our best to answer those questions. We ask that you refrain from mentioning specific staff members' names or specific students' names because of privacy rules, and the laws that we have to uphold to protect our staff and our students. But we're sure that you can find ways to ask your questions without mentioning those names, and we look forward to hearing from you. So at this time, please come up and speak.
My name is David Sprinson. I live at 16 Southwoods Road, Syosset, which appropriately is right across the street from Stillwell Fields. And I've been there for 50 years. So I come to speak to you and welcome the new board members, and impressed with the program that you presented today. I want to speak briefly about the project for Stillwell Fields, which I know was defeated because one of the ballot items lost by 89 votes. One was passed by 13 votes, as I know. But I'm assuming that all the work that was put into this project suggests to me that it will not be left and that it will come back again. If I am wrong about that, you can tell me now and I won't go any further. But if I am correct and that the project is not dead, then I would like to communicate to you the feelings of the members of the community, many of which I've gotten to know much better than I knew originally, insofar as we are united in our profound concern that in that project, which is basically the development of athletic fields, about which people have different feelings, but we as an organization, as a group of neighbors, have no specific organized feeling. We have particular concern and strong objection to the suggestion that there should be a band shell and a performance stage. I can assure you that the opposition there is universal and strong. And we have created a network now of individuals who live in that area, along Southwoods Road, Chelsea, Salem Court, Woodland, and there is no one with whom we have spoken who is anything but strongly opposed. And I have taken on the responsibility of communicating to them, telling them that I would monitor this issue, keep them informed, and I do invite and welcome being informed of any actions that have taken place in pursuing this project, which would involve the public. And I hope that you will, in your wisdom, recognize that those two things have no place on Stillwell Field. They have nothing to do with the revitalization, improvement, and enhancement of the athletic facilities. The other plans can go ahead. We have no organized position with respect to it, but with those we are strongly opposed, and I hope that you will take that seriously, and any future plans will not have anything to do with a performance stage or a band show. And I thank you for your attention.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Good evening. My name is Satbir Singh, 30 Juniper Lane. 30 Juniper Lane, Syosset, New York, 11791. I'm here with somewhat of a concern regarding what happens with kids that are bullied, or I'm very glad to know that you do have more funding now to fight emotional distress with children, which is great. But more importantly, recently my child was abused in a mall. And then I found out after he was abused in the mall, he told me that in school he was abused as well. And last year, he had an incident in school too. I know in this day and age we have so many people that are sitting here which have the same concerns as I do as a parent, and as all of you have done so much to look at these concerns in the past, but I feel like we need to know as parents that what is happening in schools, what can be done more to address these issues, because, I mean, if it can happen in Syosset schools, which is probably the most diverse schools on the East Coast, I would figure, it's kind of concerning, because emotionally, physically I could tell you my son is strong, but emotionally I could tell you that it's not. I mean, now he started talking about it because I went out and I had more than enough things to say on TV to get this attention. I speak for everybody here, you know. Asian crimes have gone higher, South Asian crimes, as being Indian, being brown-skinned man. We thought we were moving to the best school district, which we do believe it is. We live in this society which is, when I talk to the school people, you know, I was told we have no tolerance policy. I understand that. Then again, we were told that we can't discuss, obviously, what the punishment is for the kids. We understand that too. They are kids. We need to mentor them the right way. We just can't punish them, which I decided to do with the other incident in the Walt Whitman Mall. But more importantly, I feel that there needs to be, if somebody's being suspended, in-school suspension or out-of-school suspension, there should be more education to the kids to say, not only don't hate on anybody how they look, but more importantly, if you are hating on somebody and you're a part of it even, you will be thrown out of the school. I really think that parents, you need to send the memos out to the parents of every kid in Syosset schools. All that money is great, but if it's not spent the right way, it's not. We need to do a better job, because I understand in the 80s when I came, nobody knew who we were. But I don't expect the same thing to happen 40 years later. So with that, I know what we're talking about, but thank you so much. And I know I've spoken to a few people in school, but I still think there needs to be a better job done. That's all. Thank you so much.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for audience to the public? Please come up.
Hi, my name is Alona Cohen. I live at 6 Valley Road in Syosset. I had two brief questions. I think the first one is related to, in some ways, the comment that the last speaker brought up. In the conversation about use of the additional funding, I thought it was great that there was mention of additional support, social emotional supports outside of the classroom. And there was mention of supports, instructional supports in the classroom. I guess my question is in terms of what are the supports for the teachers, perhaps, or the staff for developing more robust social emotional supports within the classroom? And I think that could address both some of the issues that were just brought up, as well as the trauma that many people faced over the last year and a half. So that's my first question. And my second question is a very general question about world languages. I think the expansion of the program is awesome, and I think it does actually take into consideration the diversity and the growth of the diversity of our community. And I'm curious, what's the process of expanding it even further, and what are the opportunities? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tian. I live in Syosset. I have 2 kids study at the Syosset School District. So first of all, I thank you, the BOE members and Dr. Rogers has been keep on following the CDC procedures and sending out emails to remind everyone we should continue wearing masks. We should continue wearing masks. And now luckily the vaccine's out and the case is getting lower. And now I think the latest update is that indoor require mask wearing and outdoor is not requiring. So this update is great, but I just wondered how you make sure or enforce inside the building the students and the staff, the teachers will wearing masks, because I could imagine that the kids will go out and so happily and not wearing masks, and when they come into the building and they do not want to wear it again, that if nobody remind them, they're probably just not going to wear it. So one story my daughter sharing with me recently is that at end of one of the class, her teacher said, "Oh, I really don't like wearing masks, and as soon as the CDC allows me to take it off, I will just take it off." And I personally understand this teacher wants to express her personal feeling of not want to wear a mask, but because she's a teacher, she's an educator, so her words are really influential. When she started to say that in front of the entire class, and some students start to echo and start to say, "Hey, yeah, I don't like that either," and etc. So that, I don't know if those students want to agree with teacher heartily or just want to please the teacher. But whatever, that really makes the other kids feel uncomfortable when they feel like the mask was there to protect them, to protect their health, while the teacher was publicly telling them that, she doesn't like that mask. I think, again, everyone could have her feelings, but as an educator, you should keep that to yourself and not putting that influential words in front of the students, because that's not a good influence. So I want to make sure that we have some education on our staff and teachers. And to those staff and teachers who do not want to wear masks, and I don't know how you make sure they do that. The other thing is about, I know that kids above 12 will get a vaccine, and that's great news. But for kids like my son, who's younger in the elementary school, they are not able to get a vaccine yet. So I'm a little worried about when in September the school starts and everyone went back to school. I don't know what will be the policy by then, but I hope you will think about those kids and make sure they have safe environment. And if wearing masks would help them, how can we enforce, make sure the teachers wearing it, and if vaccinated will help, how can we encourage our staff and teachers to take vaccine? So last thing is that, can we make sure if we can't enforce adults to take vaccines, can we at least make sure we're having them to take the COVID testing to make sure our kids are in a safe environment?
Thank you,
Thank
Kian.
you.
I appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Tasneem, and I live on 40 Colony Lane, Syosset, New York. I have a middle
Did you
school.
say Bethany? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Tasneem.
Okay.
Tasneem. I have a kid in high school and in middle school. Both my kids have faced bullying in school. And I share the same concerns as Mr. Sadbir regarding the bullying and not enough change that has happened in last 6 years that I've seen in this school. So 6 years later, I'm seeing something happening to Sadbir's son that happened to my son, not as bad as him being pinned down, but being called terrorist. 6 years later, he's a senior in school, and he still lives with that fear of being called out in the hallways. My daughter faced bullying as well, and it was of a different nature, not based on her religion. But she also has issues. She is scared to walk in the hallways, and she's struggling with her health because of that bullying that happened. The punishment or whatever suspension is given, that kid takes the suspension and just moves on with their life. But the kid who gets bullied has the effects of that bullying for many, many years, or maybe for their whole life. And that needs to change. So from a school like Syosset, total integrity is expected, and there needs to be more transparency as to what is being done to these kids who come and bully our kids, especially based on appearance or religion. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? I'm Asha. I live at 40 Demuse, Syosset. How are you? So I've lived here about 15 years. I wasn't born in India. I was born in Fiji Islands, and I lived upstate New York. I'm just going to share with you a couple of things. As I grew up, I was the only Indian child upstate in an all-white neighborhood. There was hardly any minorities. I spent a lot of my energy trying to fit in, and my mental energy that should have gone to just being a teenager, just growing up, just learning. I spent a lot of time figuring out how to look like everyone else, how to act like everybody else, how to blend. I moved away from that. I came to Long Island. I went to college. I went to law school. I came back to Syosset, and the reason was the diversity, right? So I wanted to have more brown people like me, but more people from different cultures. I wanted to raise my kids here, and that's what I'm doing. And I love Syosset, right? I was involved with the whole Diwali, when we came to ask for Diwali to be approved as a holiday. I was here. I loved how you all reacted. There was zero, there was just no objection. Everybody was on board. Everybody said right away, yes, this is going to happen. And that was the day I realized, wow, I made a really great decision. Unfortunately, in the last couple years, I would say the instances of bullying have increased. I was actually shocked to realize there was an Instagram account where multiple middle school, high school students reported, even kids in college now, reported how much bullying they had experienced in the Syosset system. I'm proud of all that you've done. I get the emails from Mr. Rogers. I love to read them. I like that you're proactive. You're always ahead of the curve. You put that task force together. I have to say, I don't hear enough back. Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I'm not involved. I don't know where the accountability, where the transparency is. I'd like to know where they're at. I'd like a monthly report, if possible. What are we really doing? Because if this child who's 13 was bullied by another Syosset student who was 13 in a mall, a high-end mall, and then he was just given in-school suspension. I realized he was arrested ultimately, right? Ultimately, he was arrested. That was not the initial reaction. Sadbir Bedi knows people. He was able to get something accomplished. I don't think a lot of us are able to get to the same place, right? He was able to make things happen. Good for him. That's one kid. There's many other kids that don't speak up. My kid is also, he's in 8th grade. I have another one in 3rd grade. I won't say they've dealt with direct bullying that way, but they know others who have dealt with it, and they are. And it's an awful thing to be bullied and have to go to school every day. And that's it's part of your upbringing. You're not focusing on the right things. Your mental energy isn't in the right place. And why is that happening in Syosset? We can't be churning out kids that, don't understand basic differences between religions and cultures, That's the sad part about it. And, to be given in-school suspension, I don't think that's enough. I think there has to, you say zero tolerance, it's got to be zero tolerance. You're out of the school. You can't keep being in the same school, in the same hallway with that child. I don't know if apology is something that you can force. Could there be something like some kind of training or, counseling, mandatory counseling that they have to go to, the bullied and the bullier, both of them. And it's anything that we can, as a community can do to help, happy to help. I'm an attorney. I'd be happy to do what I can. But please, I just want more transparency from the board and from this task force. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to come up? Going once? Going twice? Okay.
Hello, everyone. So this is my first time be here. My kids told me school is serious, so this is true. I feel so nervous here. Sorry, I forgot what I said.
Could you give us your name, please?
Oh, sorry. Hong Yuan Fu. Okay. My kids told me if I get a call from school, it's a bad thing. So I got several calls, but I say like accident to get extra pants or something like sick. But last week I got a call from school. My kid is in AP Village, and I get a call from the principal. So he told me something happened in my kid's classroom. So one of his classmates said that knowing the teacher showing all the countries' flags, and one of the students said that is a toxic Chinese flag. And that happened. Another girl in that class raised the hand to the teacher. The teacher immediately reported to the principal. Then the principal immediately reported to all the parents. So, and the principal said, we feel sorry for that, and we are going to correct that and educate that student, and also talk to that kid, her parents. Later, when my kid come back from school, and I asked him what happened, he said that just a normal thing, but I feel appreciated for the school. My first thinking is not that the girls say the toxic Chinese flag, because I'm sure in the future or one day my kid will say the same thing, offend someone else. I'm pretty sure maybe they are not in purpose saying that, but I appreciate the team, the school team, the teacher, the principal. They fix the problem. They immediately reported things and make us parents to think, what is a good team? What is the parents? Why do parents like a school? Or what is the expectation? So if we see even the tiny thing, the team can do it immediately and nicely. We will trust it. So that, I think, this is a really good thing I see for now. And I wish I can see it in future. Thank you.
Hi. I'm going to take my mask off, if you don't mind, okay? Because I can't really breathe talking with it. My name is Jamie Scher. I live at 12 Chestnut Lane in Woodbury. My kids are grown now. They're out of high school. They went to school in Syosset. And I've always found Syosset to be a leader in, everything. Right now I'm working with American Frontline Doctors, and I am getting calls every single day from students, from employees, from college students, from parents of students in Manhattan, in Long Island, where they don't want to be forced to wear a mask. They don't want to be forced to be vaccinated. But more importantly, they want to know what is going to be the protocols. And I'm getting calls right now from parents from this area, and they don't know what the protocols are. If they're going to have to be vaccinated, then you need some time to know if they're going to have to be vaccinated. And there's just nothing out there telling them what they have to do. There's all these different reports right now of kids getting heart issues from these vaccines. Kids that are being forced to get vaccines in colleges, when at the bottom of those paperwork that they get, it says if full FDA approval is obtained. But nobody reads down to the bottom. So anyway, I think that Syosset is a leader. And you guys really need to, there's not really a question, but you need to let people know what those protocols are going to be. Just as a side note, I mean, I'm not dressed like a lawyer now, but I also own a yoga studio, and it's in Plainview, and I put in a system, a Casper system, that they use in hospitals and in airports. It's something that maybe this district should look into, that you can put into the buildings. And it actually has UV light, which shines on oxygen molecules and turns them into hydrogen peroxide molecules, killing germs. So we've been open since August 24th, since Cuomo let us open up, and we haven't had one case of COVID, and nobody wears a mask ever in my studio. So there are things that can be done. I heard somebody saying before about the masks, and kids should not be running around with masks on, not doing sports. Everyone here, every time you sip water, you took your mask off. Why? Why is that okay? There should be no masks here. Masks don't work. We need to do our research. We need to be leaders in this community and help, to make it so we go back to normal. Masks don't work. And I'm not going to say whether to take the vaccine or not. That's going to be it's my body, my choice. Okay, but you have to look at also the people that are getting injured by the vaccines. So if there are professors if there are teachers that don't want to be in the schools, because they're nervous, they're older, they have, some kind of medical issues, then maybe go with some teachers that will be in the schools, and those teachers should retire. There has to be some kind of plan. But kids, they're the ones that don't get this disease. Kids should not be wearing masks at all. I almost left. I couldn't sit here with my mask on. I think I wore my mask 5 times, gone to the grocery store. Now you go into supermarkets, you go in everywhere. You don't have to wear a mask. But yet in this room, we still have to wear a mask. I don't get it. Why don't you have Casper systems? We have enough money. We pay enough taxes. I still live in the community. I know how much taxes I'm paying. So you guys gotta be leaders. This community is a phenomenal community. You gotta be leaders. And you gotta let the parents know what's gonna happen. What's gonna happen in the fall? Do they have to wear masks? Do they have to be vaccinated? I hope the answer is no to both of those questions. Thanks for your time.
Hello, my name is Sunchul Lim. I'm living 1 Warren Drive, and I have a very simple questions. I have 4 kids who's elementary school, middle school, and high school. Some of them go to school in person, and one of my child in virtual. So my question is that after summer break, the September, everybody go to school. And I believe that not only my child, many kids, they stayed home more than a year, not attending a school, not meeting friends. So I had a kind of a discussion with my child, and she has some kind of concerns and the fear going back to school, because she has not going back to school more than a year, and that kind of a situation will be affecting many of our children. So as a school district, do you have any plan to greet those kids to coming back to school, and emotionally or physically or socially, so that they can easily going back to school when the September coming back. That's my question. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tian Lulu. I live in 69 Hidden Ridge Drive, South. Let me sign my name first. The first thing I want to address is about a mask. I'm thinking it's a free country. We respect people who don't want to wear mask, but we also need to respect people who really feel safe to wear a mask, especially in September. Maybe in September, the CDC changed their guideline, and I believe our school district will follow the guideline. So I think our school district should concern about after CDC changed their guideline, if some students, they still feel safe to wear a mask. Maybe they are minorities, but we should protect their choice. So that's my one suggestion. And another thing is that parents who just mentioned about many students, they have been stay at home for the remote learning for more than 1 year. And in September, when they come back, they probably have to, adjust themselves to the new environment, which is the new in-person environment. They probably have some trauma or some social emotional issue. Because I'm saying this because I'm also a teacher and I'm doing remote. And some of my parents, they talk to me their daughters or their boys who need to go to the psychologist because they have some issue or problem. So that's I think school or the educators in our school district should think about social emotional learning things. How to help our students to adjust to the new but the normal life in school. So that's my second one. And the third one, I want to talk about that lady who just mentioned the A.P. Willis principle, right? The boy, some boy mentioned about the toxic national flag and the principle, inform every parent. When she said this story, I think as Asian parents, we really appreciate A.P. Willis what the principal did, and I really hope our school district, Dr. Rogers, maybe address or inform all the parents in the school district. In the school district about the a racism event or the bully event. So more parents can be aware of these things, and so parents and the school district can work together to make such things less and less. So that's my 3 suggestions. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to come up for a first time?
Hi there, I'm Dr. Gina Uman, 40 Preston Lane, Syosset, New York, 11791. So I'm also just kind of reiterating back to the topic of certain crimes or racism or whatever it is that you see going on. Is there a task force where parents are involved with teachers, where some of this information is reported. That's just something. So this is my first time here. I have 2 children, one in the elementary school, one in the middle school. I grew up in Queens, again, 40 years ago, dealing with being from an immigrant family, having changes. My husband grew up here in Long Island. We have an interreligious family. I pride the fact that my son has friends in multiple different facets. And he's been exposed to certain things, but not on a direct level. And I guess that's my question. If it's something that isn't there, it's something that that Syosset, being as diverse as it is, should at least expand on that level. On the elementary level, I know they have, brown bag programs, and they have certain things. On the middle school and the high school, it starts to dwindle. It starts to become optional. There should really be certain regular programs for every type of cultural ethnicity, because this is Syosset. I mean, this is like the creme de la creme, of Long Island. You graduate from here, and you have friends from so many different backgrounds, and it's amazing, and it's something that our kids are so proud of, and it's something that I would hate to see slowly start to dwindle because of all these crazy things that have started to happen over the last few months. And it's been a difficult year. COVID, pandemic, you name it, but that doesn't excuse where the changes have started to happen, and it starts from the home, it starts from the parents, and of course it's maintained on the education level. But if there's things that we can do as a community, whether it is you want more involvement, whether it is you want separate meetings, buddy systems, whatever it is, thinking outside the box, fast forward 40 years from now, you don't want Syosset to have a different type of reputation. So it's just something I'm asking. I don't know much about it, but if there is a coalition that you can form or something of that sort, or have more people involved, by all means, it's something that should be publicly noted and something that should be addressed on a regular basis. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who hasn't come up yet? Okay, is there anyone else who hadn't finished what they were going to say a first time and needs an additional 4 minutes? Okay, thank you so much for audience to the public. We will close audience to the public now. Dr. Rogers?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your comments. I'm going to try and group some of them thematically because there are a lot of questions, first of all, about what next fall will look like. So New Jersey released their guidance to school districts for fall instruction over a month ago. New York has not released guidance to school districts yet. So some of the open questions on our mind are, what will be the social distancing requirements in classrooms, 6 feet or 3 feet, or something else? Obviously that matters for how many kids will fit in a room. That matters for how many staff we'll need to have to supervise those students. Will a virtual option be required or not required, or as in New Jersey, not permitted to do a virtual option? That's an unknown as well, because if there is a virtual option, we have to figure out how to staff it. Third question is one that was raised tonight. What will be the requirement around masking in schools? Right now, and the reason why we're masked in this room is because the guidance from the state, which has force of law, says that indoors you have to have masks in school. Outdoors, masks became optional a few days ago. So I presume that the state will certainly continue the outdoor optional masking requirement. What I don't know is what the state is going to require indoors for schools. So I can't speculate about what the state is going to do. I know it is getting awfully late in the school year to not have given us more explicit guidance so that we can do planning for the fall. We're all anxious to get that guidance so that we can do some structuring around how we'll operate. With respect to vaccines, colleges are independent entities, and so they can make their own rules about attendance requirements. School districts are not independent entities, and this is a subject on which we have no authority to require vaccination. So if vaccination is going to be required, that requirement would have to come from the state of New York. So again, I don't know what they're going to do, but that's not something that's in our hands. That's something that's in the state's hands. apart from the guidance that we're waiting for from the state, what plans do we have for students who are going to be coming back in the fall? So as Dr. Rufo mentioned, there are a number of plans that we've been putting into place. Dr. Lamelza, if you could head towards Charlie's seat, I'm going to have you go to the microphone if you wouldn't mind. And we are planning on hiring another social worker, anticipating that students are going to have some emotional needs. We did have students who were virtual for much of the year and then came back to in-person learning in the fourth quarter. We saw that they had fallen behind in terms of their social skills, unsurprisingly, and some of those students struggled more than others. So we're seeing, even in the population that has been virtual for 12 months, 14 months, that there are important developmental stages that students need to go through that they haven't had that opportunity for, and we do need to support them. So Dr. Lamelza is assistant superintendent here. He runs the pupil personnel services team. They have been putting together the plan for how to support all of our students, but in particular the students that may have been traumatized by the pandemic and may have some deficits because of their virtual learning. So Dr. Lamelza, can you just talk through some of that plan, please?
Surely. It is a concern, most definitely, and it's a concern not only for our students, but also for our staff. I know someone mentioned that before. So our PPS, Pupil Personnel Services department, particularly our psychologists and social workers, and we're very excited to be increasing our social workers, are already planning. There's going to be presentations, there's going to be active reaching out to the community in terms of the school community, teachers and students, to identify students that we really feel are at risk. We've been tracking students over the course of this year, year and a half, to kind of gauge students that perhaps are not as engaged as we want them to be. Attendance might be an issue. So again, that data is all leading us towards developing some interventions. Our interventions are multifaceted. They really are going to be geared towards the students' needs. I should also add that it's not just the counselor, it's not just the social workers and psychologists. We are going to be recruiting the counselors. And then, of course, some of the teachers as well. We have many, many teachers that are very talented in social emotional learning. We talked about how our language teachers engage our students. So, you know, it's not necessarily the content, it's really the entrance of the teachers and the students and being able to match them up. So it's really multifaceted and multi-pronged. I would encourage you as a parent, if you have specific concerns about your child or about situation related to your child, even in that bigger context of the whole bullying discussion, let us know. You really do have to reach out to the building. Start with the counselor at the secondary level, start with the principal at the elementary level, the psychologist, now with our social workers as well. We truly, truly want to hear from you, because that's the only way we're really going to be able to address this comprehensively and consistently. So it is going on, and you'll certainly be hearing more about it as we move forward into next year.
And Dr. Lamelza, just talk a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, about the supports that we have for staff as well.
Yeah, as far as our staff supports, we really have brought in a stronger connection with one of our community mental health services, in addition to any other supports that will be offered to them within the school district. So we'll have sort of, I don't want to use the term counseling sessions, but certainly we'll have opportunities for staff members to work together in smaller groups with the support of the PPS, again, counselors, psychologists, social workers, if there's any in particular need that any of our staff members have. You know, we do have staff members that are out virtually now who will perhaps be coming back. So again, it's that same sort of concern about how do we bridge that gap? How do we come back and become a part of a learning community again comfortably? So it'll take some time, but there will be ongoing sessions for building staff as well.
Thanks, Dr. Lamelza. A couple more questions in this reopening vein as I'm just going back through the notes. Students wearing masks voluntarily, that's something that I certainly have no opposition to. Again, it's possible that the guidance might give us some direction on this. I think it's more likely that the guidance will be silent on that. In terms of the UV system, the board approved the installation of a direct outdoor air system for the secondary schools in the district to improve the amount of ventilation that's here. The state, at least so far, is not permitting school districts to implement electrostatic systems, ultraviolet systems, ionizing systems, and there's one other type of system that they're not permitting. So what we are permitted to do is increase the amount of fresh air that we have in buildings, which serves to dilute the virus. And so that's also effective. And we've upgraded all of the filters on all of the air handling systems. And most of them are at MERV 13, not all. But the ventilation is actually more effective even than filtration in terms of diminishing the amount of virus that's in circulation. In terms of Stillwell, Mr. Sprinson, I have no idea what the future holds for that. I can just say that I have not put any energy into it since the vote took place. And your concerns about amplified noise are noted. And if anything does move forward, we'll continue to communicate with the community and let people know where we are. But as I said, I haven't been working on it. Dr. Cohen, in terms of the process for expanding world languages, we're following the same process that we used, I believe it was in 2018, when we added Chinese as a new language at the middle school. And so that involves doing a student survey because we want to see if there's interest in the language. Starting the program and having no children attend doesn't make sense. Then we'll take that survey data, we'll pull together a focus group of parents, we'll evaluate that data with them. Ultimately, we'll make a recommendation to the board, and then we'll begin to hire someone to staff the program. And the idea would be to start another language sequence that starts in the middle school so that it's possible for students to go through a very high level because they'll have gotten some of the elementary levels out of the way in middle school. In terms of the multiple comments about bullying in school situations, kids saying things, outbursts, and all of that, this is important work that we have to do as a school district. When we say we have zero tolerance, it does mean we have zero tolerance. We address the things that we know about, and I know, and I'm sure, that there are students who don't tell us about things that have occurred to them, and that puts us in a position where we can't address them in the way that we want to. Addressing them comes in a number of forms. The first is our staff need training so that they can recognize issues and intervene. They need training on what that intervention is. They need support so they know that if they intervene, they'll be backed up by the administration. And they need guidance in terms of how to address different situations appropriately for the situation. So what are the options that are available to school? So the one thing that we can't do is expel a student. Every child in New York has the right to a public education. That right can't be taken away. So what we have to do is find a way to serve students. One of the things that the school district started about 3 years ago was rewriting our code of conduct. So a number of the people who spoke talked about re-educating, apologies, compulsory, I don't know what I want to get the word right and not put words in someone's mouth. Mentoring, not just punishment, working as a team with parents, and mandatory counseling. So one of the things that the district has put into place is something called restorative justice. And it is our hope to do restorative justice whenever possible, because that restorative justice approach encompasses a lot of these themes that were suggested. That said, it's not something that we can compel. The only thing that we can do in a compulsory way is in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension. So we do try to work with families, with parents. We do try to have students take responsibility for the mistakes that they've made and for the harm that those mistakes have caused. And that is a process of educating students on the impact of what they've done and holding them accountable for what they've done. So every misbehavior will have a consequence. And our hope is that that consequence is not only addresses the behavior, but also is an opportunity for students to learn. What happens with the students, and this is also driven by law, operates differently for very young students versus very old students, students who are, say, late in high school. It's different if there are first offenses or multiple offenses. It's different if the student has a disability or doesn't have a disability. Sometimes the student's disability makes it harder for them to control their language, and that's also a challenge for us to address. So all of those factors have to be taken into consideration. And then the last point is about transparency. I'm very pleased to hear the satisfaction with how Willits handled an unfortunate incident. We do try to communicate with parents who are directly involved in a situation, but there are limits on how much we can communicate because of privacy concerns for students. And getting that balance right is always going to be a challenge, but the privacy requirements are driven by federal law. Breaking those requirements is a federal offense. We take that seriously, but we also take the behavior of the students seriously. The district is engaged in a diversity and inclusivity task force. One of the subcommittees is working on the student experience. The board is going to have a conversation tonight about what next steps, I assume, about what next steps may be for that body, which has been in existence for about 1.5 years, and we've seen a lot of interest in participation, so that's a good thing. It's a sign of health for our community. And I too am proud of the fact that this is a diverse community. I'm proud of the fact that this Board of Education has taken some very tangible steps towards recognizing and celebrating that. But I also recognize that our diversity is an incredible opportunity and also a responsibility, and we have to live up to that opportunity. So this work will go on because this work is important. And I don't know if any members of the board would respond, but I've covered everything in my notes.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. I just wanted to add a couple of things. As Dr. Rogers mentioned, the Diversity and Inclusivity Task Force does have subcommittees, and one of those subcommittees is community outreach. And what I've heard some tonight, and certainly some in the last couple of board meetings, is a desire for more communication and maybe different communication about how to report incidents of bias and of bullying. Many parents don't know how to advise their children or don't know whether their children have been advised about these processes. And it is really important that we make the community aware of how to report incidents to us so that they can be addressed. And so one of the efforts of the community outreach program is certainly going to be how to improve our communications so that there's better awareness of how we address complaints and how complaints can be made by students or by parents or anyone else. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that that's something that we are actively working on, and that we've heard you in this respect. And lastly, we've spoken a number of times recently about restorative justice, but the last time that we really had a presentation on restorative justice was when we did change the code of conduct, and Adele Bavard, our former deputy superintendent, had provided a presentation. But I do think, because it's come up and because it's important and because it would be helpful for the community to understand what restorative justice is, so that if we can't compel it, perhaps an understanding will allow for more parents and students to want to engage in that work. It might be great to have Ms. Bavard back because she is actively engaged now in the restorative justice work. And I know I just attended a continuing education course for the law profession, and they were talking about how they're trying to bring restorative justice to the courts as well. And she was a very engaging speaker, and that might be an additional person to add to the panel. I'll get you the name, and I think that might be something that the community could be more aware of going forward. So that's my 2 cents.
I want to thank everybody who came to speak. I'll share a little bit of my story. I grew up in Queens too, and I didn't speak English when I went to school. I was definitely bullied all the time because we looked different, we ate different foods, and as somebody had said before, whoever bullies you, they move on and you don't forget about it, and this affects you for the rest of your life. Somebody else said you spend a lot of energy just trying to fit in and just trying to be American, and I get that. And I don't want any of our children to feel unsafe at school. I can't walk down this hallway. I understand. I went through that, and I still feel it today. So we don't want to just do better. We want to be the best. That's why we moved here. That's why I moved here, for that reason, that I love the diversity. So I want you to understand that. I understand where you're coming from. My mother still doesn't speak English today, and I know what you're going through because it's a struggle even through today. So I just want to let you know that I hear you, I understand you, and we will do better.
Hi, good evening. I'm hearing from everybody. I'm hearing from Dr. Rogers and the board president. I agree with the parents. It's a serious problem, but we all have to, and I liked hearing from Dr. Rogers, if I heard him correctly, is that we wanted to, and this is something I've been advocating for years, is, when a student does something wrong, do you want to send them away forever? You want to send them like to prison or something, or worse? I mean, they're still children. And we need to come up with a compromise and a way of dealing with it as it occurs. Dr. Rogers talked about if a student is expelled from the school or prevented from going to the school, what that does is it doesn't help the child. It ends up, if that does happen, and the superintendent makes the decision for that under certain circumstances, the school district pays for that child's education. Okay, so we want to be we are a compassionate school district and community here. So I think we need to assess when these things happen and how it happens. Is it malicious? Is it just a student reaching out in anger? to hurt somebody. Tom mentioned he was bullied. I was bullied too. I'm not making light of it, but it wasn't fun, and over the years it made me a stronger person, not a bitter person. And so I just think the school district with the task force needs to come up with something that meets with the community, and that. Dr. Rogers, I have a question for you. I know this wasn't directly discussed this evening, but it has to do with Stillwell. I believe in your previous presentations, even though I didn't support that project, you indicated, I believe, that the students of this school district needed some athletic space or will be using those fields. I personally outreached to Nassau County, and they have not gotten back to me as an individual. I didn't reach out to them as a trustee. But if the fields need work, which they do, and the paving and where to park and the bathrooms, and that's owned by Nassau County, then I think the school district needs to communicate with Nassau County when they're going to take ownership of that and fix it. I don't think it's necessarily up to the town of Oyster Bay. The town of Oyster Bay was just taking care of the property. They weren't making any money off of it, as I understand. So I just like to see that facility gets brought up to better standards than it currently is. Thank you.
I couldn't tell if Mr. DiFilippo was asking me to address that. I think what we saw as attractive was the possibility of having more all-weather fields so that our current grass fields didn't get beat up quite so much. So if someone decides to invest in that property and create some all-weather fields, then that would certainly be something that we'd be interested in trying to negotiate an opportunity to take advantage of. I don't know that I'm in a position to tell the county how to run their property at this point, but certainly we'll keep an eye on anything that they choose to do.
Okay, thank you. We'll begin with the board's discussion items. Chris DiFilippo, you have a comment about the Amazon warehouse project?
I don't have any really particular question on the Amazon. When I was definitely against it, I know that they're progressing to the building, and we do have concerns that the owner of the property and Amazon leasing it is complying with the direction under the guidelines from the Department of Environmental Control. And I believe that the district has an environmental engineering firm which has looked into this with the ongoing operation. So I think that would be something that perhaps Dr. Rogers can give us more of an update on in that area.
So we did hire an environmental engineering firm to help us prepare all of our comments to the various entities that have been involved in authorizing the project that's moving forward. They have been in contact with the Department of Environmental Conservation on our behalf, and they have reported that from their conversations, there is air monitoring equipment on site, that no exceedances have occurred so far, that the department would notify us immediately if there were any exceedances that we needed to be alerted to, and that the DEC has been on site multiple times a week with representatives of both their Long Island office and their Albany offices to do inspections. So I don't want to put myself in the position of being a spokesperson for the DEC. That's not my role. But we did confirm with them that if there was anything that we needed to be alerted to, they would alert us in a timely fashion so that we could take whatever steps we needed to take. And so with that reassurance, we've been comfortable moving forward.
Anyone else on the topic of Amazon? Okay, great. At our last meeting, Dr. Rogers was looking for some feedback on from the board as to how the Diversity and Inclusivity Task Force is running. And in particular, there were 3 areas that we indicated we would be discussing at today's meeting. We've reached a point in our membership where the task force is 60+ members, and we are grateful that there are so many people in the community who want to be involved in that task force. And so we need to discuss, one, what our membership should look like, how, whether there should be a cap, how do we manage the membership so that we can be productive, and if we are doing something like that, how and who would be making those selections. So that's one area, is membership. One is feedback as to the task force mission, and then how is the task force organized and what the board's role is with respect to the task force. So I figured that the easiest way to facilitate the conversation is just to take it by topic, and we'll address a topic together and then we'll address the next topic. If we start with the mission, on the website there is a slideshow for the Diversity Task Force, and the mission says on that slide, the task force will explore opportunities to encourage and expand upon the socially cohesive climate within our schools and among the student body, staff, administration, and community. And so my thought on that was that I think we need to have a mission statement that is clearer for the community as to all aspects of the purpose of the task force. I know that there were some questions tonight about whether we have a task force and what that task force is doing, and it is so important. And so my thought is that the mission statement should be reworded to include the 4 facets of the work that we're doing. That's the student experience and community outreach and staffing and curriculum. And I also thought that we might be clearer as to what the task force is expected to do, and that expectation is to provide recommendations to the board and to the administration in those areas for our consideration. And so is there anyone on the board who has any thoughts on the current mission statement, or thoughts about my suggestion, or if you have your own suggestions?
So in terms of the mission statement, I think our goal is for our community and all of our children to feel sense of belonging and sense of safety So I think including that will be helpful. And also although it is very basic, human decency of respecting one another, and if our children do not practice it innately, that we will teach them how to practice it, not just in theory, but practical terms, how to put this into actions, what things are not allowed. So being very specific in our action plan, I think will help us. I don't want to go off on tangents, so I'll wait until here.
Ooh, that's great, Shani. Thank you. Susan?
I completely agree with Shani. I also think that it would be helpful to have something that says we want to create an environment of kindness and compassion to others, that, in including and understanding other cultures, religions, and differences, that we can, that's the kind of environment that we want to create of, kindness and inclusion.
Anyone else?
Just a quick question to Dr. Rogers. Are there any other school districts that successfully structured their task force on diverse inclusivity in a manner that is functioning well, and it includes everyone and gives everyone in a community an opportunity to speak up and discuss and participate in discussion? Is there a cap to their membership? Any success stories out there? Or we're going to be the first ones?
I'm sure there are a lot of school districts that I might not be aware of. What I'm familiar with is a number of school districts that are doing diversity, equity, and inclusivity initiatives, some around curriculum, some around school climate. I don't know of anyone who's, and I'm not sure that this was, I'm not sure we anticipated we were going to grow so quickly, so large. So that's a great development and something that we need to manage, but I don't know that I have a model out there that I can point to and say, this district is ahead of us and we can follow in their footsteps. I think we are going to break some ground here.
Okay, so, Tom, did you want to say?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions too. Is the task force, are we going to have board members on the task force?
Yeah, so we'll do the organization piece of the conversation in a bit. Right now, there are board members on the task force.
Okay.
It's truly anybody who, on the board who wants to take part in it can.
Okay, so will that be, will they report to the board with their findings, and then the board will implement them? How is that going to work?
So that's a discussion that we're going to have when we talk about the organization and the board's role. For now, we're just dealing with the mission statement as it is. Okay. But that is going to be a discussion between all of us, if you have ideas in a few minutes about the organization of the task force and the board's role in connection with that.
Okay. Now, the reason I'm asking about that is because I'm trying to understand, is this up and above or separate from what we have currently in the school, within the school?
So right now, we have a task force who is tasked with making recommendations, but the mission statement itself doesn't identify that so explicitly, and I think it's important to include that. But just like, for example, the allergy committee that we had, where the role of the allergy committee was to make recommendations to the school district and the board as to what they felt were going to be improvements on how we address allergies. This currently is similar to that. They'll be making recommendations for our consideration.
Okay.
That's how it's currently set
Okay.
up.
Thank you.
Okay, so yes, Chris.
One thing I'd like to request that the task force take a look at, as well as the district, is, and I'm not pretending to be a social worker or a psychologist in this area, but I had taken personal courses in overall life enlightenment and improvement. I don't know if it's possible the children may be too young to be able to learn the concepts, but when a child receives a negative response, or we interpret it as being bullied or intimidated or made to feel less important, can it be possible that there be some type of training for the children? Because if someone gives me a negative comment or whatever, I hear it and I choose to accept it or not. I don't want to give that power, that negative comment power, to the individual looking to cause harm. So I'm not sure if that makes if that's in the program for the school district to take a look at. I'm sure it's something probably the pupil personnel director can comment better on that.
Are you asking if we help victims to reframe their experience? I want to make sure I understand the question.
Well, it's a way of you could call it the victim or the person that has been hurt in one way or another, to deal with it. In other words, they are given some types of tools to learn on how to better handle that, so they don't take it, the full. In other words, they don't give the person giving that hurt to them power. They kind of are able to look at it and say, it's not true. That person just wants to say that to hurt me, and I'm not accepting that. Along those lines.
Well, our counselors, our psychologists, our social workers are all very skilled at supporting students that have been victims of bullying and bias, but that support alone won't make the hurt that is caused go away. So obviously prevention is the most important thing that we can do, and the suggestions about educating students on what not to do are important, so that we don't cross the bridge of having a victim have to then find out how to, with whatever support we give them, learn to live with the upset that they feel because of what they heard, or worse, what happened to them.
Well, it's not about living with it. It's about so they can become a stronger person, and they obviously could report the situation, but they could perhaps either through counseling or maybe through adding some type of peer group interactions with other students, where they could freely talk about, like, someone said this to me and it hurt me, and people, if they could get to discuss it, not will have the hurt go away, but they can look at it and begin to heal better with the understanding of how it happened and how they are reacting to it as well.
So, may I take a minute or two to talk, please? Because it is very personal.
I'm so
whatever
sorry.
Discussion is going on right now.
I'm so sorry, but we have concluded audience to the public, and we are
Yeah,
having...
but right now the
I'm
discussion
sorry.
that's going on is very, very, very close, and I hear both angles of it
Okay,
from Dr.
I'm
Rogers
sorry,
and.
but we have closed audience to the public, and we would be happy after you hear the board discussion to send us an email and communicate with us if you have any additional points that you'd like to make today. And then also, we invite you to come to the next month's board meeting where you can address our discussion again. But we have closed audience to the public, and we always treat our members of the audience the same way. We've had these rules in place, and so we aren't opening up audience to the public again. And I agree with you. This is a very, very important topic of interest to both the board and the community. And so we don't want to inhibit you from sharing your thoughts with us on this topic. Just in terms of timing, if you could listen to the board's discussion now, because we are in the middle of a discussion, and then email us if you want with additional thoughts, and then share them publicly again at next month's meeting when we have audience to the public. We would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just leave it, like, instead of focusing so much on the victim, focus on the perpetrators of it.
Thank you so much. Sorry, Chris. Continue.
So, Dr. Rogers, I'm looking to look at different ways of dealing with it, obviously, and that's something that the task force is chartered to do. And I would look forward to seeing, how that progresses, basically. Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there anything else on the mission statement specifically? Tom?
Yes, Tracy, thank you. So going back to what we were saying before about the mission would be, and I don't know if anybody said this, but understanding and learning about different cultures, different religions, different races, different gender selection. So where is that education part of the learning? I mean, the mission needs to be, we can educate people on AP Physics, but we can't tell the difference between religions. So we need, like, the education, the learning, and the understanding piece as part of the mission.
Okay, so I had prepared something, and I'm taking notes as to what additions people on the board have mentioned today. So I'm going to read it. Doesn't have to be verbatim, but just an idea that potentially incorporates what we're saying, just so that we can give Dr. Rogers some direction. So the task force will be a vehicle to aid the district in fostering a learning community who understands and respects the diversity within our schools and the voices of those with different perspectives than their own. The task force will make recommendations to the district administration and board for their consideration that will promote skills to effectively relate and work with people who are different from themselves, promote human decency, promote student safety, promote a curriculum that is reflective of multicultural perspectives, promote the quality of experience of our students and staff by exploring ways to increase the diversity of our staff in ways that are reflective of our community and the communities our graduates will enter, and promote community understanding of the work we're doing to create an environment of respect and cohesiveness. So definitely does not have to be verbatim, but does this capture what we're talking about here? Thank you, Shani. Does anyone have any objections with something like that for the mission statement? Okay. Dr. Rogers, does that give you some direction in terms of the mission statement? Wonderful. Okay. The next piece of the conversation is the organization of the task force and the board's role. And as we talked about before, the board serves as a governance role on the task force, and we will be receiving the recommendations of the task force. But I can't help but recognize an opportunity for the board to have areas where we can offer our ideas to the task force and give feedback as well, because this mission has been such a priority for us, and I know that board members feel that they want to really participate and contribute to this group. So my thought was maybe when the subcommittees have reached a point where they're trying to solidify their recommendations and they've got ideas that are developed but not yet finalized, that the board members that wish to participate in the task force might be able to meet with each subcommittee separately. I know we got a flavor of that at the last meeting. So in the first couple of meetings that the diversity task force met, the committees were doing their work. The board members hadn't really seen those efforts, and then we all 60-plus members met together and we were sort of reported to. And that almost felt like a missed opportunity for us to be able to really share. But at the most recent meeting, everybody broke up into smaller committees. Board members were assigned to a specific committee. We were sort of spread out. And we were really engaging with the work and commenting, and we received comments back, and I felt invigorated about the work that was being done, and our ability to contribute to that. So the subcommittees are clearly going to be doing a lot of work on their own. There are going to be many meetings, but I know some of us were interested in all of the subcommittees, not just the one that we were assigned. And so if there could be an opportunity for us to be able to meet with each subcommittee at some point when that work is almost ready, but not quite there, I think that would be helpful for us as a board to understand, the work being done, and maybe make the recommendation piece of it a little bit easier. So that was my thought with the organization, but I do like the 4 subcommittees. I think they're very, very important. Susan?
So I think this committee is so important, and I was at both of the meetings. I was at the meeting where we got reported to, and then I was at the one that just occurred that we were able to take part in the breakout rooms. And I know on a personal level, I really felt it was important for us to be able to take part in the meetings and to hear in more detail and get more backgrounds and hear what was going on and how people felt, and to really be a part of it. And that's definitely something that I know personally I'm interested in being part of it. I think the idea of being able to be part of all 4 of the subgroups is fantastic, because I know as much as I loved being part of the breakout room that I was in, I also wanted to know what was going on in the other areas as well. So because I thought that it was very important, since we're eventually going to be the ones that are creating the policy and having what has to be followed, for us to have more than a superficial understanding of what's going on. And I think us having more in-depth knowledge and being able to take part of all of those subgroups in some capacity is very important for us to be able to be reflective of what the community really wants and to have a better handle on what's really going on. So I think as much involvement as we can get, I would be in favor of.
And forgive me, I'm not sure on the subcommittees, but I just wanted to make sure that we have all the stakeholders involved. So the parents, the administration, district, the board, the students who have to live with this, and they're the ones who deal with it. So as long as all the stakeholders are represented and have a seat at the table, then we'll make progress.
Thank you. Just to make clear to anybody who's listening, the task force currently has all of those stakeholders that Tom just mentioned. They've got community members and staff members and administration members and, board members. And we also have members from the Interfaith Council, different religions, leaders of various communities that are definitely impacted by this diversity and inclusivity task force. I'm sure there's a list that Dr. Rogers probably has, but without question, all of those stakeholders are important for us to get feedback from, or else this doesn't work. So does anyone else have any wishes or comments on the organization and the board's role?
I think, just thinking out loud, I view it as sort of structurally as a combination of our safety and security committee, right? And perhaps, since that body has to be kept for sure, hold community forums that the task force would lead and organize and for the purposes of giving the community out there, anyone really, to come and speak and share and talk and discuss and, have a productive dialogue. And then the task force would reconvene and come up with recommendations and the work that they were selected to do. Perhaps something along those lines, so that you don't end up with unlimited number of people on the task force, but you give the opportunity to everyone in the community to come and participate in the discussion and share stories and voice concerns. Perhaps something along those lines.
Thank you, Anna. I actually had a similar thought, and I'll bring that up when we talk about membership for sure, but there's definitely, I see an opportunity as well for more of our community to be able to share their stories with the task force as part of the task force and give their feedback and help the conversation so that we can get these recommendations. I think that's great. Anyone else? Shani?
I have a few comments, but I don't know where they fit, so I'm just going to lay them all out. First is this problem of racism did not come to surface because all of a sudden there's an increase of minority students. I think it was always there, but now it's brought up to the surface. And people who are experiencing it is no longer tolerating it and bringing it up to the surface. So it's not because there are more diverse students, all of a sudden these things are taking place. Now there are more diverse students, so that minority students feel empowered to be strong enough to say it and bring it. So I am very thankful that the school district recognizes the need and established this task force. And I do believe we are one of the first ones to actually put a task force into system. However, it is a little slow in getting, in terms of moving along to produce the result that we need, such as setting up system, things like that. And in order to do so, I believe in a specific task force organization, we need to place plans and some sort of deadlines so that it's not just sitting there to discuss, but actually produce evidential result, put into system. This will be placed at by this time. So some sort of deadline, timeline, so that we can progress forward physically. And I do just want to mention about that, sorry about that, justice. What was the title again? Restorative justice. So by the time that all the parties are aware of the situation, the minds of the people, both the perpetrator and the victim, their minds are already closed. They're already angry. The people who are perpetrators, they feel like they're victims now. And they will no longer apologize or put into that state of mode, mindset to rebuild. I think, I don't know what the steps are specifically, but while the people, both the parties' minds are open and willing to work forward, I think that step needs to come in, scoop in as soon as possible, so that people are not hurt way beyond repair, so that there's no more chance for restorative justice taking place. There were a couple more, but I forgot.
Thank you. Anyone else? Carol?
So when we were talking about the stakeholders, besides including the staff administrators, PTA, community members, and then I would like to suggest that we also include student government representatives from all secondary schools. This way, we do have that student experience, because that's one of the subcommittees. And then another point is that we need to invite students who have graduated out of the district, however, living in the district. I assume this is a community, so they have to live in Syosset. And it is important to bring them back and then for them to express their experience as well as students, whether good or bad, positive or negative. This way we can have both sides of the students sharing their experience. Same thing with the community members. We need to have, both sides of the community members. This way, we are, being more inclusive, and we can have that conversation, two-way conversation going, and that, in a way, that would be a better communication from the district to the community, and then also to the students who have graduated out of the district. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, and please object if you have an objection to this, I'm trying to capture mostly what everyone has said, is that the structure in terms of the subcommittees is great, that board members would like to take part in the meetings more actively, and we could be more productive if we're meeting at appropriate times with the subcommittees, each one of them. And that would help us when we are ultimately presented with the finalized recommendations, that it would be helpful if perhaps at the beginning of each school year we have some target goals in terms of looking forward to what each meeting is going to look like, and when we're going to receive certain recommendations, understanding that this work is ongoing, and so there won't ever really be an end game. We'll always have more recommendations and more things to consider, but it would be helpful and maybe motivating to have an idea of where, at the outset, where we're going for the year, on what we're working on. Did I capture anything? And is there any objection to that? Okay, great. So that is the organizational piece. As for membership, as I said, we have over 60 members currently, and the importance of the work does require a manageable number to make progress. We had received a suggestion. We had asked at the last meeting for community members to certainly share their views on this, and we did receive a suggestion of a cap within each subcommittee to be comprised of faculty, administration, parent, community members, and students. And I do think the cap is wise. I'd leave the number up to administration because they organize the meetings as to what their experience is in terms of the number of a functional group. And I certainly don't think board members should be taking the spot of an active community member. So I don't think that we should be counted when you're solidifying the number. We received a suggestion that for every member of the task force, they should have a 2-year term. And I thought I could see a modification of that suggestion because we do have certain people on the task force with very specific professional knowledge that's very helpful, and I wouldn't want to see them and their contributions leave as we get new people in. But I do believe the community and parent component is so important to rotate because the goal is for this work to be reaching as many people in the community as possible and for as many people as possible in the community to feel invested in the work that we're doing. And so if there is a way to structure this so that parents and community members can rotate, and maybe it's a one-year term, so the parents, whatever the number of parents is that can be participating, maybe they come for a year and then we have another set of parents come in. That's a suggestion. And then we received a suggestion for an application process as a way to manage the group. And that may be the only way to manage the group so that we have a spread of experiences each year. And of course, I would leave that application process and the questions that we'd ask up to maybe the assistant superintendent for curriculum and the chairs of each subcommittee. Those were just my thoughts. Susan?
So I know I keep saying this, but it's such an important group, and I think there's so many people who want to be part of it, and I think that it's so important. A lot of times these committees are filled with people who are very involved in the school, and so they know about them and they're connected to them. But especially with this particular committee, task force, there's so many people who maybe haven't been super involved in the school but want to be super involved in this. And I think that it's really important that we find a place for everybody who wants to be involved while still making it manageable. So I was thinking that perhaps we could break it up almost per school and have, this is just an idea that I was thinking about, so, anybody with suggestions to work on it, totally feel free. But if each school, so if each elementary school had their own kind of group where anybody who wanted to join could join, and then there were representatives from those schools, and then they could come to a next level meeting and discuss what each elementary school maybe discussed, and the middle school could do it the same way in the high school, and then the representatives from all those schools come together. That way there would be a place for everybody to come and join who wants to, and then, but it would still keep the meetings manageable because you would have, whoever you'd have at each of the, 10 schools with the representative at the next level, and then if you needed to, you could have an extra level. But I think that it's so important for everyone who wants to have a voice and wants to be heard to have a place to come and to share their story and their suggestions, and everybody brings something different to the table. And I think to limit it is not ideal, and so, but still having to be manageable because you can't have a 500-person committee, but to make it in levels. So,
Just have
I
a
also wanted
question
to-
about that.
What?
I
Yeah.
have a question about that. So is the suggestion for the representatives of those groups in each school to be the people in the subcommittees? So it's almost like a different level. There's a subcommittee that's in each school, but then those representatives are the subcommittees as we know it. Is that the suggestion?
So I guess we would have to figure out the best way to do it. I think, if I'm just going off the cuff, I think that probably it makes sense for each of the 10 schools to have a group where they discuss all 4 things. And maybe there could be 4, since there's 4 subcommittees, there could be 4 representatives from each school. So like, let's say Robbins Lane would have their group that would discuss all 4 areas, and then they could each have 1 representative to then go to the subcommittee meeting to bring to the subcommittee whatever their home school discuss. And so that way you would then have 10 people in each subcommittee. You could have 1 representative from each school. I mean, we could play with it, but just thinking about it. I just wanted to add, I'm not sure where this fits in. I do think that we need, in one of the goals or one of the, maybe in the community outreach, it's important that we have something that educates parents and children on how, we obviously have a lot of things in place for it, but not everybody knows about it, where they can report something that happens. I think there's so many incidences that go unreported, and then we can't address it because we don't know about it. And so I think part of it needs to have ways to get the information back out, and that, you know, we have the environment that the kids and the parents feel safe to, which of course is what everyone's goal is, and we are trying to do. But, you know, to create this safe environment where they can report it. So wherever that fits in our, as part of our mission statement, maybe, you know, food for thought.
Shani?
I was thinking the same thing. I think it's a great opportunity for PTA to be involved in this. So maybe have a committee in PTA. So each school has a committee that hears everybody from that school. And I think 2 per school is always a good idea. So they can, if one forgets one item, the other one always helps remember, you know, what happened in that committee meeting. So that 2 people can come to the big meeting. So there's 10 schools plus SEPTA, so 22 people coming together in a committee to discuss and represent what's going on in each school and the voices of each school.
Carol?
Okay, just to echo what Susan and Shani said, PTA assisted with selecting members for some of the district-wide committees before. I believe it was restorative practice, the allergy committee, and even the facility improvements, and it was vetted through the council. And then they will, you know, have each unit select representatives, and then we could mirror that similar approach for the task force. And it's also important for these PTA members to come to these task force. This way they can report back to the unit, and this way they can, you know, help disseminate the information and what's going on with the task force. That will reach the greater community, and then, you know, to their membership. We're talking about including SEPTA, that's already 11 units. So that's a powerful way to get the information out to the community, what the task force is doing.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Susan Falcobe as to the, you know, the rotation, making sure that everybody who wants to participate has the opportunity. How did we come up with the number? Like, was that just an arbitrary number we came up with as to the limit? Is there a way we can consider expanding that? Is that like written in stone? What can we do to try to make sure that everyone in the community who wants to participate has a voice?
Does anyone else have any comments with respect to membership? I really like the idea also, Susan, that you had of each building having representation. I thought that was fantastic. So I would say that that's what I'm hearing from most of the board members, is to make sure that that happens, that there is some kind of rotation so that we can ensure that more community members that want to participate can at some point. And then the only comment I would say with respect to the selection is that there are a lot of community members who don't belong to the PTA. I hope they all join. I'll just say that because it's a great organization. But there are a lot of community members who do not belong to the PTA, but yet would still want to participate. And I would just want to make sure that whoever is doing the selection, whether it be a PTA representative from each school or not, that we make sure that we're pulling people in who aren't necessarily known yet to the PTA, but that there's a way to disseminate the the application process, or however that's going to work, so that everybody in the community who wants a chance to provide their input, they can. Tom?
Yeah, so I think we want to make it take down as many barriers to entry as possible, because obviously, again, I could speak for myself. It was very difficult for my mom to understand what was going on at the school. So if you have a language barrier, if you have a cultural barrier, it's very difficult to be like, well, I have to fill out this form. I think you just have to make it open so people can participate, let them opt in, and then we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't think you want to make it so formal where you put barriers to entry.
Shani?
Allison just texted me saying that if we want a PTA committee, it needs to be presented by each board and must be approved by each unit. So it's too late for this coming year. If we want a PTA committee, it needs to be presented by each board and must be approved by each unit. So it's a little bit too late for 2021 to 2022.
Is that helpful?
I know that the PTA Cultural Unity Committee has gone through a little bit of leadership transition and a little bit of mission transition. It may be possible, Dr. Park, you're probably more familiar with the PTA's rules than I am, but it may be possible to take advantage of the Cultural Unity Committee so that we can work within their existing structure, at least in the short term. I hear a lot of comments about wanting to get as many voices as possible, and you also suggested that we would identify what the number at which this becomes unwieldy would be. I think that's the most challenging question to answer. I share your enthusiasm for making sure every building has representation, and I'm just trying to think of how we would operationalize this with as much interest as I think there will be. But whatever you decide as a board, we will figure out how to do.
So how about this? That piece is going to be the most difficult piece. I think that there's obviously an interest from the board to, as Shani had said, make our efforts productive as quickly as possible. In order to do that, we can't possibly have a 5,000 person group, so it does have to be managed. It can't be completely open-ended, but we can. We would love some suggestions from those staff members that you have who do organize meetings like this, to maybe come back to the board with an idea for how we can rotate, get representation from every building, get people in the community to contribute without having such an expansive group that we can't move along the way we want to. Does that work? Okay, great. That ends the discussion items, and there is no unfinished business, so we begin with A items. A1 is the approval of appointments, transfers, resignations, and retirements for certified and civil service staff. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Feldman, seconded by Ms. Levitan. Are there any questions? Mr. DiFilippo. Okay, no questions. All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? We have done A2, so we begin with A3, approval of 2021-22 stipends and hourly rate activities. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Cheng, seconded by Mr. DiFilippo. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A4 is the appointment of summer guidance counselors. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Mr. Gershon. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A5 is the approval of driver education 2021-22 year. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Cheng, seconded by Ms. Falkov. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? A6 is the approval of defense and indemnification. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Cheng, seconded by Mr. DiFilippo. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B1 is the approval of recommendations from the Committees on Special Education. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Levitan, seconded by Mr. Feldman. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B2 is the approval of recommendations from the Committees on Preschool Special Education. May I have a motion, please? Mr. DiFilippo, seconded by Ms. Cheng. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B3 is check signing designation. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Rotolo, seconded by Mr. Feldman. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B4 is the approval of the district-wide school safety team. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Gershon, seconded by Mr. Rotolo. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B5 is the certification of a vote. May I have a motion, please? Mr. DiFilippo, seconded by Mr. Rotolo. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B6 is the revised appointment of Chief Election Inspector and Election Inspector for the school district budget vote and annual district election on May 18th, 2021. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Falkov, seconded by Mr. Feldman. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B7 is the approval of the destruction of cast ballots from the June 9th, 2020 annual meeting as tallied on June 16th and June 17th, 2020. May I have a motion, please? Mr. DiFilippo, seconded by Ms. Levitan. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B8 is the authorization of destruction of unused detective and void ballots from the 2020 annual budget vote and election. May I have a motion, please? Mr. DiFilippo, seconded by Ms. Cheng. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B9 is the appointment of a board registration for 2021-22. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Gershon, seconded by Mr. Feldman. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? B10 is the second reading of policy 7500, naming of facilities, and policy in 7600, gender-neutral bathrooms. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Cheng, seconded by Mr. DiFilippo. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C1 is the authorization of service contracts. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Levitan and Mr. Feldman. Are there any questions? Mr. Rotolo.
Are we authorizing these because the contract is up? Because aren't we going to renew all of our vendors July 1st?
I'll have Dr. Rubin I'll have Dr. Rufo go through some of these. Partners in Inclusivity is a consultant that we're working with right now around this inclusivity work. The Mercy First contract is amended. Dr. Rufo, the transportation contract and the life insurance contract. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, some of them are up July 1, and we enter them effective July 1 so that they're on now, so that they're in place by July 1. The We Transport that Dr. Rogers just mentioned, that's a settlement from settlement costs from 1920 for the closure. For the school closure, when they were, we did not pay, similar to Huntington Coach, where they had standby costs. Yeah. So we had an outstanding bill with this company that we settled for a quarter of what was owed.
And the Hofstra University contract is a revision because of the additional cost of the outdoor graduation that's there.
At Hofstra, yes, we did.
How much did we get?
We paid them a deposit at the time, and it was returned. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was whatever the deposit was.
And this is a separate note on the Hofstra one, and again, I don't know what the cost is. Since, is there any cost benefit or any benefit for having a graduation at Hofstra rather than on our campus?
So it's my understanding that a long time ago the graduation was on the campus, and because of the frustration of trying to deal with the weather and the inability to make sure that there were enough tickets for people, the decision was made to go to a much larger venue so that no one was prevented from coming to see the graduation. So it has the advantage of being an indoor space, and it has the advantage of being large enough that no one's turned away. So the two middle schools usually go to the Tillis Center, and even though those two middle schools represent roughly half of the graduating class at the high school, the Tillis Center is usually very full. So Hofstra is an even larger venue.
Are there any other questions on C1? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C2 is the authorization of special education and nursing contracts. May I have a motion, please? Mr. DiFilippo, seconded by Mr. Feldman. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C3 is the authorization for contracts for federal Part B funds. May I have a motion, please? Mr. DiFilippo, seconded by Ms. Falkov. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C4 is the tax anticipation note resolution of Syosset Central School District, New York, adopted June 14, 2021, authorizing the issuance not to exceed $40 million tax anticipation notes in anticipation of the receipt of taxes to be levied for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Gershon, seconded by Mr. Feldman. And this is a, well, are there any questions first? Tom Ricciolo.
This is, again, our bridge loan, basically, correct, until we get those actual funds. And in Section 3, are we reimbursed for the interest, or is the interest, or are we basically floating, we're basically paying for the interest for this?
Yes, we pay for the interest, and yes, this is a cash flow bridge, if you will. Yes, yes.
So we can't get any of the money back that we pay for the interest?
Correct. They're notes that we pay interest on.
Are there any other questions? Okay, this takes a roll call vote, so I'll be calling out our names, and you just say yes or no. Ms. Frankel is a yes. Mr. Gershon?
Yes.
Ms. Chang? Mr. DiFilippo? Ms. Falkov? Mr. Feldman? Ms. Levitan? Dr. Park? And Mr. Rotolo? Thank you. C5 is the authorization for insurance policies. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Chang, seconded by Mr. Feldman. Are there any questions? Mr. Rotolo?
As with all the contracts, or with these put out to bid, see if we can get any reduction, see if we can prepaid discount. And do we have enough coverage? Do we need more coverage? And are all our valuations up to date?
Your first.
A couple points on this, and then I'll let Dr. Rufo answer in more detail. We did go out for an extensive rebid of our insurance, I believe, 2 years ago, and had a substantial reduction in premiums. So Dr. Rufo remember the magnitude of the savings, but it was substantial. So what we've seen since, because of the pandemic, has been a sharp jump in insurance costs that are driven by the losses that the insurance companies are seeing. We also went through, because we switched insurance companies as a result of that RFP a couple of years ago, they went and revalued all of our assets. So through that revaluation process, they identified that our assets had appreciated in value. And so that also affected the insurance premiums on this time around. And then Dr. Rufo can go through some additional detail.
Well, I think you answered most of the question, but the magnitude of the savings at the time, I believe, was close to $500,000.
Are there any other questions with respect to C5? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C6 is the authorization to establish limit to fund budgetary reserves for the year ending 2020-2021. May I have a motion, please? Mr. DiFilippo, seconded by Mr. Rotolo. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C7 is the approval of club charters. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Chang, seconded by Mr. Feldman. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C8 is the award of bids. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Chang, seconded by Ms. Falcove. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C9 is the award of bid to Island Pump and Tank Corp. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Levitan, seconded by Mr. Feldman. Are there any questions? Tom Rotolo.
Dr. Rogers, what was this related to? Was this oil tanks? What was
Yes, so when the district did our phase one projects, gosh, it's got to be 5 years ago now, we had 5 different projects that we were doing, the door replacement. One of the list of the projects was to remove all of the underground fuel oil storage tanks that we have at all the buildings. They're all at the end of their useful life. If an underground oil storage tank fails, it is a significant environmental problem. So we've been proactively removing all the tanks. So we've been going through the school districts and taking out the tanks methodically based on which buildings are not being used during the summer. We do this work during the summer. Some were having construction in parking lots. Others needed to have new furnaces put into place to convert to gas. So as we've either done the conversions or finished other work, we've gone through and removed the fuel tanks. And I think we're down to 2, Greg? We have 2 left? He's nodding, so I got that right. I think we have 2 left. So that would be Bayless and Whitman are the last 2 fuel oil tanks that need to be removed. But we've been removing them everywhere else.
And that was my second question, to say there wasn't any contamination in any of them, right?
We've not had any of them fail. So, yeah, in fact, after the removal takes place, we're not allowed to close the ground up until the Department of Health comes and inspects the hole. So that is one step in the process. Then after they give us a clean bill of health, no pun intended, then we're allowed to close up the hole and put, most of these have been under parking lots, so we put tarmac over them.
Are there any other questions on C9? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C10 is the award of Nassau County Director of School Facilities Purchasing Consortium cooperative bids. May I have a motion, please? Mr. DiFilippo, seconded by Ms. Chang. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C11 is the acceptance of donations. May I have a motion, please? Ms. Falcove, seconded by Ms. Chang. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? C12 is the acceptance of the disposal of broken, surplus, and/or obsolete equipment and books. May I have a motion, please? Mr. Feldman, seconded by Mr. DiFilippo. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Once again, we wish well, Mr. DiFilippo and Mr. Feldman. Thank you for all of your service, and you will be missed. Good night, everyone.